we had a really good new Financial Aid Advisory Committee orientation with a few people. So today I'm going to do a roll call, but I really would like for everybody to kind of do just a brief introduction, especially for those new committee members. Okay. A couple of things to remember are, this video is being live streamed. A couple of things to remember. We want to make sure that we mute when we're not having a conversation. We also need to make sure that when we have the chat feature, but because it's being broadcast, we need to make sure that we actually ask those questions verbally. Those have to be recorded. We also, just like with any meeting, will need to identify ourselves. We also use the feature where you can raise your hand when you're ready to ask questions. Other than that, we'll just get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with myself. I am Rochelle Garrett. I am the current Director of Financial Aid at Stephen F. Austin State University. I've been in financial aid for about, everybody's moving around, but that's okay. I've been in financial aid for about 22 years. Currently I'm the interim Executive Director of Enrollment Management. So I'm kind of taking on two roles right now. But I've really enjoyed being on the Financial Aid Advisory Committee. Has brought a lot of good information, good knowledge to me and my team. So I'm going to just go down the list that I have, call your name, and then just briefly give us an introduction. So Denise, she is our past chair.
Good morning. My name is Denise Welch. I am a financial aid director at Panola College in Little East, Texas, and I've really enjoyed my time on this committee. I feel like we really make a difference here, and I really appreciate the Deshay and her staff for helping us muddle the waters that we have to go through. So thank you very much.
Deshay?
Good morning. I'm Deshay Reed, Senior Director with Student Financial Aid Programs. My area does a lot of partnership with you institutions. We do a lot of funding, and I'm really happy to be here. I've been with the agency for 7 years, so I'm delighted to be partnering with each and every one of you as we go through this educational journey together.
Jackie? Didn't see Jackie. Yeah, Jackie. See her.
Hello, I'm Jackie Adler. I'm the Executive Director of Financial Aid at Texas State Technical College. I've got about 40 years of experience in financial aid, which is funny since I'm only 42, but somehow that happens. And I've really enjoyed being a member of this team, and I have learned a lot from this, and looking forward to this next year.
Reginald, do you want us to call you Reggie?
Reggie is fine. Good morning. My name is Dr. Reggie Browns. I'm Director of Financial Aid at Lamar University. I've been in financial aid about 26, 27 years. I've been in higher ed about 30, 31 years. Really enjoy higher ed, really enjoy financial aid. We're looking to be a part of this committee. I know you guys do some great things. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Thanks. Victoria.
Good morning. I'm Victoria Chen. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at TCU. I've been in financial aid for 25 years. Delighted to be a part of this committee and the ability to share ideas and learn from everyone here. Glad to be here this morning.
Thank you. I've got Dee Dee, but we know she will not be attending today. Bridget.
Good morning. I'm Bridget Ingram, Director of Financial Aid Operations here at Texas A&M. I've been in financial aid 20-ish years. I guess that's like trend. A long time. Glad to be part of the committee.
Okay. Cecilia. Is she on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay.
Good morning. Yes, Cecilia Jones, Director of Financial Aid at Jarvis Christian University. I've been in financial aid. This is my 30th year, and I'm glad to be a part of this committee.
Yeah. Rachel Joseph, she is our student representative.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I am Rachel. I am currently a third year at the University of Texas at Austin. I study business. I don't have any professional experience with financial aid, but I do come from a student perspective of handling with or dealing with financial aid. So I'm excited to be on this committee.
Yes, we really need that. So thank you, Rachel. Millette.
Hi, I'm Millette Leaf Green. I'm Director of Financial Aid at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. I've been in financial aid 21 years, like everybody else, and I'm just excited to be here with so many friends, lifelong friends, and mentors, people that I look up to. So I'm really, really excited to share ideas, hear your ideas, and participate.
Gabby.
Hi, my name is Gabby Leon. I'm the Financial Aid Director here at Alvin Community College, and I've been in financial aid for 17 years, and I'm really excited to be here.
Scott.
Hi, my name is Dr. Scott Lipinski. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management and Director of Financial Aid at UT Permian Basin. I've been in financial aid for 22 years. I look forward to being part of this committee.
Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda McKendry, and I am the Dean of Scholarships and Financial Aid at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas, and I have been in financial aid for 27 years.
Holly.
Good morning. I'm Holly Nolan. I'm the Executive Director at University of Houston, Clear Lake. I've been in financial aid about 13 years. I hope I can, after these last couple years, I hope I can make it as long as some of y'all. But I really love financial aid and helping our students. I love serving on this committee, and welcome to our new members.
Shauna.
Hi, I'm Shauna Norton. I'm the Director of Social and Emotional Services for the Wichita Falls Independent School District. So I come to this with a completely different perspective, and I enjoy getting to see the perspective that everyone else has from the college standpoint. I've been helping students with financial aid in various roles that I've had for somewhere around 12 years in total. And then I was also a financial aid recipient when I was in college. So.
Sal Ramirez.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sal Ramirez. I am the College and Career Readiness Coordinator at Trans Mountain Early College in El Paso, Texas, Far West Texas, with EPISD El Paso Independent School District. I've been in education for 16 years, and the last 6 years have been dedicated to helping students with financial aid here at the campus level.
Thomas.
Hi, I'm Thomas Ratliff, the Director of Student Financial Services at Abilene Christian University. Been here in Texas for just over 4 years, been in financial aid for about 33.
Joseph.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph Sanchez. I'm the director here at the University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth. I've been here for about 13 years now. I was with Dallas College for about a little over 4 years before that, and I guess I got started in the financial aid industry when I started as an intern in '97 at Texas Guarantee Student Loan Corporations. So it's been a while now. So yeah.
Okay, Joseph Ruiz.
Good morning, everyone. My name is, like I mentioned, Joseph Ruiz. I'm the Director of Financial Aid Services at Del Mar College in Corpus Christi. And definitely I'm excited to be part of this committee, being part of such, amazing group that's been in financial aid for quite some time. I've only been in for 16 years, so definitely I got some catching up to do, but looking forward to learning with you and also doing our best to come up with some great ideas to help our constituents and everyone across the state.
Lisa Ann, I think is.
She's having some difficulties getting in.
Is
she'll
she?
be here
Okay.
shortly.
Okay. Is it Tevian?
Yes, that's correct. Hi, I'm Tevian Sides. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at Western Texas College in Snyder. And I've got everybody beat. I've been in financial aid for just over 3 years. So this committee has really taught me a lot, and I'm real excited to be here.
Arnold is next. We know he's going to be out today. And Gilbert. Gilbert Zavala, I don't see him on here. Do we? He may be out. I've not heard from him, so we'll mark that. Okay. That was the roll call. Let's move on to our next agenda item in consideration of our meeting minutes. The agenda says December 9th of 2022. I don't think we've had that meeting yet. So I think it's the meeting minutes from June 2nd. Correct, is what we're approving.
Correct.
The slide does say December 9th, but so does anybody have any comments or concerns about the meeting minutes from our last meeting in June? Any corrections, anything that you noticed? Okay. Well, given that we don't have any objections, we're just going to say that those are approved. Okay. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item number 3, and we are having a presenter. I think Lou is already on. I think I saw him join earlier. So Lou Murray is going to present. His presentation is When Your Business Impacts Your Business. He actually provided me a little bit of a bio. I'm going to pull that up really quick and just kind of go through some of it. Most of us probably know or have been around Lou long enough and have seen Lou in different areas. He is 26-year veteran of higher education. He worked as a lender, guarantor, servicer. He's been in kind of all areas of higher ed related areas. He's a first-gen student, graduate of University of Houston. I know this very well because I see him all the time posting pictures. And has a passion for public speaking. He is really good at his presentations. I've seen him before, love his presentations. He has 3 kids, and I know he loves Star Wars, big Star Wars fan, Lou. And so I'm going to kind of turn it over to him and let him share his knowledge on this important, I think, a very important and timely topic for us.
Great. I am going to try to, share my screen here if I can. So let's see. Well, it worked yesterday, so hold on, bear with me, guys. I apologize. There we go. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Is it purple?
Yes.
That's good news. All right. Good morning, everyone. I first off just want to thank the leadership of this organization for recognizing this topic. It's a topic that's very dear to my heart, as you'll learn halfway through this session, dealing with mental health and mental illness. Some of you I have seen at some of my sessions. By December of this year, I will have presented this particular session to 16 associations. So the fact that the word's getting around means a lot to me. It actually has nothing to do with financial aid, but could be very vital and important to your office. So I would encourage you to stick around. And thank you for your attention. I'm going to just start off. Well, first I should start off by saying my allergies are really kicking in. So if I sound weird, it's not my microphone. Unfortunately, it's my nose. But I'm going to do my best to communicate with you the best that I can. I'm going to start off with a few questions. Do not chat on it. Do not raise your hand. Do not point yourself out because they might be internal personal questions. But I just want to get the mind kind of moving real quick before I provide you with the intro of this session. How many of you would you say still truly love what you do? Again, don't show any facial recognition to give yourself away here because you may be feeling down and out. But how many of you still love what you do? You still, hypothetically speaking, of course, because your boss might be in there in this call as well. I don't want you to get in trouble, but you still understand the importance of what you do, the value that it brings to your students, your families, the folks on your campus, to your peers in your office. You still understand the job, and that you still understand that you make a difference. Some of you may be thinking, yeah, that's me. Some of you may be thinking, I don't know. It's been kind of crazy lately between the CARES Act and this new Loan Forgiveness Act and all the craziness that all of y'all have been going through. How many of you can still say that you still love your job? My second question is, how many of you would say that you're tired? And I don't mean the kind of tired where you maybe forgot to drink your coffee this morning or maybe stayed up too late. I mean a different kind of tired, where maybe you just kind of feel down and out. Maybe the pandemic, post-pandemic, the grind, something you're going through at home, maybe something you're going through at work, just kind of has you plain tired. You don't know how else to explain it. And the third question I have for you is, how many of you just feel stuck? Maybe taken for granted. Maybe no matter how hard you try, you don't seem to get recognized. You don't seem to be appreciated. Maybe you just don't even know what direction you're supposed to go to. These are important questions. They're rather deep questions. They're not your typical financial aid questions, and I realize that. But that spark, that burn, that flame that you had when you first took the job, I wonder where it is right now. And that's the main focus of this session today. I'm going to start. It's a two-part presentation. I know that I'm dealing with a bunch of folks that love numbers and percentages because you're in financial aid. So I'm going to start off with the boring stuff first and give you some data and give you some statistics. And then I'm going to hop in about halfway through into more of a testimonial story time, where I'm actually going to provide you with my personal testimony and my family's testimony of some struggles that we've been experiencing about the last 8 years. And the reason why I do this is because I never felt that we had any issues, and before I knew it, we learned a lot really quick, and it was just like a truck just smashing into my household. And I can't help but think this is happening with other folks as well. And so my ultimate goal of this presentation has nothing to do with Earnest, although I do thank them for letting me do this in their name. They let me do this on their time because they believe in this conversation as well. But my ultimate goal, and it's sort of a side hustle that I don't get paid for, I'm actually an advocate for mental health. I speak at local communities, churches, ISDs, anytime I can get an audience out in Pearland, Texas, as well as in the student financial aid and higher education space as well. And my ultimate goal by doing this is to break the stigmas and stereotypes that are associated with mental illness. So again, the first part is going to be a lot of data, but more importantly, I'll share with you some things that we've experienced and how it might be able to help you as well. I want you to think for a second just how complex this world is. Think about how, and I'm talking Mother Earth here. Okay, think about the fact that there are 7 oceans and we still don't even know every species within the water, and that's mind-boggling to me. It's like another world we haven't yet discovered. Think about how complex the landscapes are: the mountain ranges, the valleys, the fields, seasons, the weather, global climate, if that's a thing, if you believe in that or not. I don't want to get political here, but let's talk about politics. Think about the politics and the different beliefs and the different societies and cultures that are going on around the whole world, and how complex this world is, both geography, both with people. It's incredible, and it's truly mind-blowing. If you think about technology in itself, the fact that we have cars driving by themselves now, we're almost at the Jetsons phase in life. It's mind-blowing to me. But now I want you to take a turn and think about your world personally. I want you to think about your world and the miracle that our body and our mind are kind of built like machines. We even have filters like a car, and we even have different mechanisms that work like an engine. our bone structure, our organs, our blood cells. It's very complex. But I want you to think about your world, your perspective, your passions, your likes, your dislikes, your role, your education, your background, how you were brought up, how you view society, how you view your campus, how you view coworkers, finance, your memories, your dreams, your plans. It's very, very, very complex. Many of us are able to separate our worlds from work and home pretty well, but a lot of us aren't. And that's why the title of this session is titled When Your Business Impacts Your Business. Because if it hasn't yet, you'll learn that your professional business and your personal business will impact each other. It's at some point. And so it's very important to recognize this. And I learned some very, very serious, hard lessons that I'll be sharing with you later on. But think about this for a second. It's real funny how if we have a toothache, we immediately want to get to where? The dentist, fast. If we have a backache, we want to go to the chiropractor. Nothing worse than being close to 50, which I am, and having a backache. If we have a flu bug or if we have a sniffles or something, we're immediately, of course now because of COVID, jumping over to get tested and going to the doctor's office. But when something's going on up here, we tend to say, it'll pass, or I'll pray about it, or it'll go away, or, it's just a phase I'm going through, or maybe I'm just weird and this is the way life is. But the truth is, part of our mind is just as important as our body. And it's funny how we want to regulate our body and we want to maintain our body. And when we're feeling bad physically, we immediately want to get relief. But when our mind's up here, we tend to want to put it off. And that becomes really dangerous, as I learned. Think about an athlete when they break a leg. And I know Joseph's on here is a big Dallas Cowboy fan. If your quarterback, heaven forbid, it breaks his leg, he's going to have to go through some trauma. He's going to have to go through some struggle. He's going to have to go through some rehabilitation. We recognize that. We will see bruises. We will see, a cast, or we'll see something that identifies that this person has a problem. But when it comes to mental, we don't get to see a bruise. We don't get to see something that's wrong with us. We don't get to see that there's a need for something that's deep, and then, or we just assume that everybody is okay. So some of us are good at boundaries. Some of us are good at diffusing work. Some of us are good at the drive home, and letting work at work. But some of us have to work out at home. We don't get to diffuse. We don't get to turn it off. And some of you that now have that privilege because of COVID or post-COVID understand that as well. Today, I'm not speaking as a sales rep. I'm not speaking as a lender rep. I'm speaking as a friend of this association in the state of Texas. I'm speaking to you as a son of a mother who has battled depression most of her life. I've managed it very well. I'm speaking to you as a father of a daughter who has been diagnosed with general anxiety from the age of 7 and is now almost 16 and doing a good job of overcoming it as well. I'm speaking to you as a father of a daughter who actually lost her ability to walk for 4 to 5 months because of the level of stress that she suffered in 2017. And finally, I'm speaking to you as someone who has been diagnosed with some things that I'll share with you later on. And my professional world was sort of almost turned upside down, as well as my personal life, and had to take a dark turn. And really just want to just kind of tell you that I'm speaking to you as a person, not a sales rep. The interesting thing about this photo is that I think we can all relate to it. The myth that's out there called work-life balance. Sometimes I think it's a fallacy or an urban legend. I'm not even sure if it's a real thing sometimes, because it gets difficult, particularly if you have a family, if you're involved in a relationship, but then also carrying responsibilities of work. Wellness and work-life balance is a very hot topic right now. We're seeing it within our company's HR offices. We're seeing it on podcasts and magazines, TV shows, radios, songs, rap, music, social media, the medical community. It's very interesting that we're now finally able to openly have these discussions. Who would have thought that I would be talking about mental health at a financial aid thing when I started 26 years ago? We didn't talk about these types of things. But we've learned over the generations that it's important and it is real and it is a real issue. Think about for a second those generations, like my father's generation or my grandfather's generation. Now I'm 49 right now, so you can do the math on how old that or how long ago that would have been. I have a feeling I'm sharing that same generation timeline with most of you on here. Back then, we couldn't talk about psychology or mental illness without it being a joke. It was hokey. It was hocus pocus, even maybe even devil talk, because it wasn't real. Sitcoms and cartoons used to make fun of psychiatrists and the couch that we've all seen and laughed at so many times on Saturday Night Live and different things going on. But now in 2022, we realize that this is a real topic and that it's impacting ourselves. So I'm going to be showing today some data that shows how it's impacting our campuses, our businesses, our country financially, how it's impacting us peer to peer and influencing other folks whenever we are experiencing mental illness, and what we can do to overcome these situations. But let's look at this picture again, the work-life balance. We're in a time right now where family is dealing with pressures we didn't have before. Look at these pictures of these kids. Our kids are expected to know their career path in the 8th grade now, which is mind-boggling because I'm 49 and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So we're in a part of time now where these devices that we carry on our bodies 24/7 have social media outlets that give us pressure on how we're supposed to look, dress, act, talk, believe politically by our faith systems, how we look, how many tattoos we're supposed to be having on our kids these days. It's a very high pressure time to be a teenager and to be a kid. But then think about us as parents as well. What type of car should we be driving? What type of house should we have? How much salary should I be bringing in? What's my title? Women, thankfully, are finally getting up the corporate ladder and hopefully, knock on wood, getting that equilibrium to where they will be getting the same pay and the same titles as men. But even still, we're still not there. And now there's a fear that when you finally get there, I can't do nothing to knock myself down that ladder. Men have the pressure of being the breadwinners and being strong and never showing emotion and keeping things in. Work expectations, having to meet, our retention numbers and our enrollment numbers, and having to meet our financial aid numbers and all these different things that are going on. There's a lot to balance. And so again, this picture to me sometimes seems like it's not even a real thing. This stats right here aren't going to be mind-boggling to you. No surprises here. We know that most of the time in the U.S., workload serves as a major stress within our minds here. Then it seems to be followed by people issues, the thought of juggling work, our personal lives, our relationships, health, and different things that are going on. And of course, job security, especially post-COVID and during COVID, speaking to you as someone that was laid off twice during COVID. So, these stats right here probably aren't mind-boggling. There are typically two types of folks, and you can probably identify as one of these types. But through this publication that I documented here, there's the one that strives on urgent pressure. These are the types of folks that actually get uncomfortable when there's not stress. I think my wife is that person. I think my father's that person. They don't know how to relax. They're the ones on the vacation that just can't sit down and can't turn the mind off. And then there's number two, who I'm probably fit more of that angle. We're stressed when we have a perception on us, when we have little control or high demands. Regardless, we all kind of bleed one or the two, but it's easy to see that we as Americans tend to fit in one of those areas. 56% of employees believe that there is more on-the-job stress than a generation ago. And there can be lots of factors into that, where we are economically here as a country, how things are on the financial aid world now, and things that campuses have to deal with now with the amount of enrollment, the cost of education, the struggles to get folks educated, and challenges that you have. 26% of workers said that they're often burned out or stressed out by work. That's probably not a surprise to you. How do we act and react whenever we become stressed out? It's interesting because in the 70s and 80s, the time when I was basically growing up, the family and the household stress and the worry was about the relationships and about money. That was the big factor. Here we are in 2022, and according to stats now, the household stress is about health concerns and mental concerns. That's very interesting to me. Not that we don't have stress about finances. We know how hard it is to buy a house these days. Not that that hasn't gone away, but it's interesting now, again, how the generations have changed. Now we're turning to realize that mental illness and problems mental are a real thing. Let's go to work here. 62% of us have work-related neck pain, which I can definitely relate as a travel rep. I think I have the Nissan Armada logo branded in the back of my back because of all the travel I do. 20% quit their job, their last job due to stress. We know that millennials are the ones that are trying to make things happen quicker and smarter, probably more efficient. We see them holding a position within 1 to 2 years and then jumping ship for the better opportunity. Where I come from, working for Nelnet for 16 years straight, and then moving on, I still come from that thought of loyalty and staying with a place for a long time. And now it's almost seen in an interview as a negative, which is interesting. But we don't know if millennials are doing it for the better opportunity or just because the stress is too hard and they're jumping ship to ship. But we can all relate that we have more stress than we did at work before. 50% of us skip lunches due to work. I'm horrible about this. 50% spend at least 12 hours a day on work duties. Now you might think, well, no, I'm only in the office 8 hours, but how many of you are still plotting, strategizing, thinking when you're in bed before you go to, where you're laying there, or maybe when you're brushing your teeth, or maybe even during dinner, you're still talking about work. It's hard to disengage. Here are some statistics that generally give me a chuckle by the audience when I bring them up. First one, maybe not so much. 80% of us feel stress while half need help managing it. So we admit 80% of us say that, okay, I'm stressed, but I really don't know what to do about it, or I'm just going to blow it off. 42% say that it ain't me that has the problem, it's the coworker. They have the problem. It's not me. I'm saying my coworkers are crazy. 25% felt like screaming or shouting in the office. 14% felt like actually striking a coworker. Heaven forbid. So I don't take that that way of doing things. So I try to avoid that. 9% were aware of an assault or violent act actually at work. And there have been a couple of ASFA Association conferences where somebody has come by after my session and said, yeah, we actually had a parent get physical with one of our folks across the counter, or different things like that. Y'all might have some stories to share as well. And then 18% experienced verbal threat or intimidation of some sort. So we're stressed. There's some craziness going on. And if it's not in the office, it's on the way home with all these crazy drivers. But there's a lot of things that are going on right now. And as Rochelle Nixon told me yesterday, the timing for this presentation is probably pretty good for where we're at coming out of peak season right now. Here's some interesting stats regarding how we process and feel like we can share in the office. 21% of us feel like we can confide in our supervisors. Only 21% of us. 35% feel like we have a coworker that we can confide in. 6% can confide in a subordinate. And 55, over half of us don't feel like we can confide in anybody at all. So it's interesting. Not that we should bring our baggage to work, or not that we should mix personal lives with professional, of course, but there is something to being said that we don't know how to talk. We don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to help each other. 30% of employees report being fearful that disclosing at mental health could lead to being fired or furloughed. And I have a story that I can relate to that coming up. 50% of entry-level employees reported feeling uncomfortable talking about mental illness to 30% of managers. So as a director, and many of you are directors based on our intros, how does your staff, what is their comfort level at being able to acknowledge that there is an issue, that they may need to take some time off because of an issue? 40% of employees with a mental illness will take time off because of this. And I'm going to show you some dollars on how much that is actually costing our country. I'm not saying we shouldn't take time off for mental health, but it does have a productivity result to how it's impacting our campuses. 35% more than 35% of managers feel that they receive no formal training on how to talk to their staff about this issue. And then, of course, the HR managers know that there's an issue, but yet only 15% feel that managers are actually being trained to recognize it. So we all know that our campuses and our companies and our ISDs have benefits and HR features to help, their staff with mental health. But the truth is, most of the Americans are not taking a part of offering those in an openly way, or accepting those in fear of being judged or ridiculed. The other thing that we want to acknowledge is just the fact that stress is not only hard on us as individuals, but it's actually contagious. And there's been several studies listed up here, and I won't go too deep into them, but I will illustrate just a little bit of what each one is trying to communicate. If I were to yawn and we're face to face, the odds are one of you in the room is probably going to do what? Yawn. If you notice, the human at the very beginning of life, very beginning stages, and my nephew just had a beautiful baby girl, and I was actually experimenting with this a couple of weeks ago. They can read and feed off of your emotions, your body language. Humans can do that at the very point of leaving the womb. And so it's very interesting that even at the early age, our stress is contagious. If a mother smiles at the baby, if the baby feels the warmth of the mother, she'll smile. But if the baby can feel the fear or tension or a stress within shakes, within body temperature, within facial expressions, it's interesting that the baby will also be impacted as well. Or when a manager tells you, hey, I need you to come here right now, we need to talk. The tone, the facial expression, everything that's going on in that few seconds of a dialogue is probably making the hair on the back of your neck raise, your body temperature raise, your heart rate kind of raising, you thinking, what did I do? Are my numbers not right? What's going on? What could this be about? And the truth is that director that's calling you in the office is probably dealing with something personal that has nothing to do with you. But the fact that we impact each other does have a result within how we work. And then I, as a presenter, if I was at a conference in front of you in an audience, or even now today, if I were to start off without being passionate about this topic, if I were to start off saying today we're going to be talking about depression and I had some issues, you're probably going to be like, I'm turning this off if you haven't already. So obviously, the way that we communicate, the way that our bodies communicate without words does have an impact on other people. And I'm not saying we need to be fake for anybody. I'm not suggesting that it's not important to have emotions, but the reality is that stress and mental illness can somewhat push off an energy that can impact our office. So I won't go too much into this because I need to take our session to another direction here. But stress evolution, this is sort of a evolution chart on how stress becomes really serious. And at first it's just annoying things, right? Stuff that just annoys you, and different things about the job, the way people talk or don't talk, or maybe even the way the computer systems are laid out and who has the rights to certain functionality and who doesn't. Maybe it's the role that you play. Maybe it's the way that you train your staff and you think things can be done better. So there's sources of stress that are very light. They're just the annoyance. It's just the climate of how we feel. But then eventually these things can become individual characteristics. They can become more of a pattern, whether it be our behavior or our attitude or our level of anxiety. And then when you mix in what's going on at home, or vice versa, if we're talking from the home perspective, all the things that we can tolerate now are starting to get more tightened. But then we start developing habits within our health system. Our blood pressure starts raising. Our cholesterol numbers, when we pull every year, when HR wants us to pull our numbers start getting lower. Our heart rate, we start drinking more, maybe even smoking. We notice depressive moods or moodiness, agitation. All of these things are symptoms that, hey, there could be red flags here, and eventually it results in true mental illness diagnosis, or even worse, coronary heart disease. So just trying to give you an idea that we really kind of want to get a wrap on things and a feel on things as individuals and as teams within this section, so that we can avoid this side of the deal. Now I want to talk a little bit about how this is all costing us financially. This slide is probably about 2 years old, so these numbers could be a little bit off, but it is from the site that I cited here. 10.8 million full-time workers have some sort of substance use disorder. 35 million work days are lost each year due to mental illness. When you put all of that into play, we're talking about 105 billion is the cost of untreated mental illness in the U.S., how much it's costing the U.S. For untreated. Now, what I didn't include here is the cost for treated. Therapy is not cheap. Medications aren't cheap. Health exercise programs aren't cheap. This is actually a $1 trillion industry that we're discussing here, both for treated and untreated. So it's a very expensive business, and it's also costing us money on the end as well. And so that's why we see a lot of HR departments really trying to find some way of beefing up mental health programs and call numbers and insurance programs that can go ahead and allow for therapies of some sort as well. This is a study that we're now doing every year, and most of it's about financial aid and how comfortable students are within the financial aid office. There was one statistic here that I thought stuck to my presentation here, and I found it very interesting. Why have you considered putting off college education on hold or leaving college? I would think most of us in this call would agree that we probably would think finance. Maybe I don't know what my major is. Maybe my family doesn't have a way of paying for college right now, or I don't know what to do. But I found it very interesting that the second highest reason why students have decided to put off school or leave school was mental health challenges. Now, maybe this is because of the COVID situation. Maybe it is the fact that we've lost some social skills in regards to being in person again because of COVID. But it's very interesting that this is where we are now. Also, right here in this paragraph, among women, mental health challenges were the top response, slightly edging out the cost is too high. So again, it's impacting our campuses, and we obviously know that it's also impacting our students as well. This is a statistic that I see on a lot of different pamphlets and brochures, magazines, podcasts, and different things, and it's one that frustrates me as someone that now has a diagnosis with mental illness. 1 in 5 folks have a mental illness. What this suggests is that of the room with 5 people in it, 1 person has the problem, and the 4 other people don't. Imagine, if you will, if we treated physical health like we do mental health. Remember, I mentioned earlier that we tend to not want to do anything when we have something going on up here, and that we tend to when it's physical. Well, imagine if we treated physical health with not taking annual physicals, with not taking blood tests to identify problems, with not exercising, with not eating right, with not taking colonoscopies, with not taking stress tests or blood sugar tests. The 1 in 5 stat makes us believe that only 1 in that group has an issue, but the rest of us are okay. And I have a problem with that. I really feel like it really needs to say something more to the effect of 5 in 5 of us, meaning all of us, will face a challenge at some point that's going to impact our mental health. We are all going to go through something, whether it be loss, whether it be a job loss, whether it be something with our kids, maybe it be something within our community, maybe a natural disaster, but there are things that are always going to be happening. So for me, I feel like the 1 in 5 stat isn't a true indication of how things can impact all of us. Further, there is a stat, 1 to 10 full-time employees has an addiction. And these addictions can be all kinds, not just substance. But this does remind me of a coworker that I had within our community. This was a guy that was a manager for one of my companies that I worked for, was very well liked, very successful, very popular, very funny. He was pretty much a comedian. Just a good guy, good manager, good friend. And before we knew it, it came out that he had been for many years an in-closet alcoholic, and none of us had a clue. He never smelled. He never acted crazy. He would have 1 or 2 drinks at the bar with us. We never picked up on anything. And before I knew it, 6 months later, after that diagnosis, he died from the liver damage from alcoholism. The point I'm trying to make here is you just never know. You don't know what people are going through within your office. You don't know what's going on with everyone. People that we think may have a strong attitude or a weird attitude, there may be something more darker going on behind the scenes. So it's real important that we have an open mind. I want you to see if you can identify some of these folks here. This is Kristen Bell. She's an actress. She was very open about being a mother, suffering postpartum depression within the Hollywood system once she became a mother, and how that depression really impacted her career. And she's been very open about the struggles that she's had. Of course, we all know this successful woman. She's extremely funny, and Ellen has been someone that's always made me laugh. It seems like a good, she's always upbeat, but she has also been very public about her battles with depression as well. Who would have thought that Captain America, the hero of the game, an infinite, what's it called? Infinite War, Infinite Game, whatever the big battle was within the Marvel world. Sorry, I'm supposed to be more nerd than that, but it escapes me at this point. That movie was where Captain America was the hero. It was in 2016. It was actually the year that he came out, that he is diagnosed with clinical depression and battles it daily. Who would have thought that this winner, who's been one of the best top athletes representing the U.S. over the years, also battles with depression? J.L. Rowling, very successful writer. Most of the dark themes within her books and characters are a result of her battle with depression as well. Who would have thought that this billionaire, successful woman who has influenced so many in and outside of Hollywood also has been very open with her battle of depression? Zach Levi has been one of my favorites to follow since 2018 on Instagram. He's got a great book here where he opens up about his battle with suicide and winning that battle. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And 2 of those were during the peak time of his successful career as an actor. And then, of course, The Rock, who has also been very important influencer in regards to being public about depression as well. I mean, The Rock is in the good movies and the bad movies. He owns things. He's just a big name. Who would have thought that these folks have problems? Not that anyone is better or more important than another human being, but the fact that these famous, successful people that we sometimes tend to idolize as a society, if they've got issues, then some of us normal folks do. So now here, I'm going to take it a little bit more closer to home. In 2018, I was working on the e-commerce space, not in financial aid, but on the Berkshire side of things. And I attended and presented at the 2018 Tescubo conference. And friends of mine, Bob Brown and Alicia Curran, both from University of North Texas and Texas A&M Commerce, they gave a very powerful presentation, sort of like the one that I'm giving you now, only this time it was centered around the 11th president of Texas A&M University Commerce, Dan Jones, who tragically took his life in 2016 due to his battles with clinical depression. Now, it's his story to tell. It's not really one to really go deep into. But the point I want to make here is during the year 2016, A&M Commerce had one of its best years as far as retention, as far as alumni donations, as far as enrollment. It's the year that things were probably going pretty good. One would think, wow, why would a leader do something like this during a time that was so bright for his university? The point of me bringing this up is you just don't know. And sometimes we think the leaders are unbreakable, that because things are going so good and things are going so great that this doesn't impact them. It doesn't impact the Hollywood stars. It doesn't impact the athletes. But this is a big deal, and it's happening all across the board. Statistics are showing that 50% of entrepreneurs in the U.S. report a mental health condition. Some of those entrepreneurs are big-time names that you and I both know and recognize. 30% report a lifetime history of depression. So again, even those that are successful, even those that are impacting us near and far, we're all going through some things. So to summarize this, what I call the boring part of my session, the stats and numbers section, I want to just point out that it's important that we realize that good business and good productivity within our office, it's good health all the way around, not just physical, but mental. And that mental, impacts our productivity. It impacts the way that we deal with our customers, how we're received by our customers, by our students. High performance teams rely on inclusion, respect, communication. And when we don't have those things, it does leave room for some holes that can be kind of dangerous for individuals. So this is the point where we go into story mode. And I'm going to share with you what we've been going through here at the Murray household for about the last 8 years or so. This isn't to make you feel sorry for me, sorry for my family. This isn't to drive attention, but these are details that will make sense in a second. But I'm going to share with you some background information so you can get an idea of where we were coming from and how this is all came to be where we're at today. So the first thing I just want to remind everyone, if you follow me on social media, if you've known me for years, and I have many friends on this call, you know that I'm a family guy. I love embarrassing the heck out of my kids. It's my hobby. I'm just a big family dude. You would also know, if you knew me, that I take my work extremely serious. I was raised by my dad and my grandfather to always give 110%. No rock is unturned, no stone is unturned. You always push. Details are extremely important, thus my OCD. But a few other backgrounds so that you can understand my story better. I actually went to undergrads, at U of H to study psychology in hopes to be in social work in the ministry. My father wanted me in business. I was part-time working for a credit union, and I ended up where I am today. He was right, and it worked out for me in business. But I was actually a minister and a pastor for a number of years while also serving higher education. That detail will be important later on when I get to the point I'm trying to make. Starting in 2014 to 2020, there were some significant passings that took place and took toll on my family or in my circle of friends. And for most part, I handled those pretty well. See, I'm the type of person that handles tragedy and chaos kind of like a champ. It's the stupid things that make me crazy, like the IT not working or losing my keys or my kids, grades or something to that nature. But the tragedies I tend to do pretty well in. When you're a first generation graduate in a rather large family and a minister, you tend to get the calls first. Everyone seems to call the house when there's a big issue, and I welcome that. I don't mind that. I still do. It's no big deal. But I have a strong passion for helping people and for those that are hurting. I'm also a community volunteer. I do weddings. Unfortunately, I've done a lot more funerals. I like to help. And I had no idea that this would eventually start taking a toll on me. And this is to the point that I'm about to make here. Before I go on, I just want to make sure that I'm still on this feed. I don't see my screens anymore. Am I still on? Okay. Okay. I thought for a second there, I'm talking to myself. So in 2017, and again, this will all make sense why I'm giving you all this backstory first later on. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, as you all know, and it was very devastating. The world, our world was underwater. We had my wife and I personally helped gut out 12 houses. 6 of those were family members' houses. 6 of them were strangers that we helped gut out through volunteering with our church. By the time you get to the 12th house, something starts happening to you mentally, although I didn't know it was happening at that time. We were helping single mothers. We were helping elderlies, folks that didn't have help. And we even helped tear down the house that Grandpa built, who's no longer with us, but from scratch, from brick and all. And, it takes a toll after a while. Talking about life balance earlier, the last 8 years have been a complete whirlwind. And not only did I learn that, I wasn't Superman, but that a Superman cape can actually choke you. And I actually learned that doing all these things in a servanthood was actually quite dangerous. And I'll explain to you why. I mentioned that my daughter was diagnosed at an early age with general anxiety. During those years, those were some of the hardest years. Now she's doing much better now. You wouldn't even know. But those were some very hard years. And those were years that I was also traveling a lot in the e-commerce space, averaging about 3 weeks out of the month travel. So my wife would have to deal with a lot of those episodes on her own, in addition to the tragedies that were going on with Harvey. My oldest daughter in 2018, the week before spring break, woke up one day and she couldn't walk. It was the strangest, scariest, weirdest thing. But basically from her hip down, she didn't really have control over it. Now, she was an athlete. She had been dancing ballerina since the age of 2, so she was an on-point ballerina. For her not to be able to use her legs was very weird. It was very scary. Lots of mystery with doctors. After about 4 months of therapy, she learned how to walk again. Now she's fine. But that happened during some major travel with work as well, and some other things going on. Now, again, I'm not telling you all this to feel sorry for me. There's a reason why I'm listing all of these things that are going on. During all this stuff, I did what my dad always taught me to do, and that was just to work harder. And if you're overwhelmed, just work harder. And that's what I did. So I focused on my job. I traveled. I tried really hard to get on your campuses, and work was my way of escaping. How stupid is that, right? When you talk about work-life balance, but you're stressed out and things are going on at home. So what do? You work harder to make things more crazy. Didn't make sense. I was very fortunate to work for a company, Nelnet, that recognized something was going on with me. My director flew me into Lincoln, Nebraska, and I thought it was a strategy meeting. And it was actually for him to have a one-on-one with me to say, hey, we noticed that you've been off lately. We want to shift some of the work off of you and redesign your region, because we think you're taking on too much with all that you're going through. Instead of being appreciative of that, I took offense to it. Instead of being appreciative of it, I was afraid that they were seeing me as weak, as that I couldn't take it. So I was trying to decline, and they said, it's best for you. And we also want you to know about these services that HR offers. And I was like, I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the same guy. I make people laugh. I serve. I do things, and leave me alone is the way kind of my attitude was on that. There were 2 instances that changed my life forever, I think. One of those was a lunch that I had with my travel partner. I was a sales rep. She was my tech rep, and we were on the road, and we're having lunch in the lobby of a hotel. The phone rings, and it's my father, and my father says, hey, your grandmother's house, this Saturday, I'm not going to be able to work on it, so I'm going to need you to do this, 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 and this. Cool, Dad, no problem, I got it. Hung up the phone. We're fine, we're eating, and all of a sudden, uncontrollably, like water just started pouring out of my eyes, and I just started sobbing. I had no idea why. My partner was freaking out, going, Lou, what's wrong, what's wrong? I said, I have no idea what's happening right now. And she's like, Lou, what's going on? What did he say? What did he say? I said, I have no idea what's going on right now. I am just as surprised as you are. And I had these emotions that I just cannot control. And it was really weird attack. But I got myself calm, and it was no big deal. I didn't think much of it, other than that was just weird. And I was embarrassed, but I didn't think much of it. There was a second instance that happened on the road. I was on my way to Lubbock. I was trying to do a pitch to Texas Tech, trying to steal TouchNet away, and it didn't work. But anyway, and so I was working with Texas Tech, and I found myself in a hotel room. It was dark. I couldn't breathe. I was sweaty. I was freaking out, and I didn't know what to do. Now, I failed to mention to you that my wife is in social work, so I called her. She was able to calm me down, but she was like, what's going on with you? And I said, I don't know what's going on with me. But I couldn't breathe, and I felt just very weird. Didn't know how to talk to her. Didn't know how to do anything about it. So I hung up the phone, and we were fine. And it dawned on me before I knew it. The people person that I explained to you about, I get paid to talk to people, and I get paid because I love talking to people. I get paid because I serve people. I love doing it. I always have. I told you I'm a people person. When all of a sudden you're not, and the thing that you're good at, and the thing that you're paid to do, and the thing that is everything you know and you're passionate about is removed, it's a very scary place to be. I remember being in that hotel room thinking, oh my God, I don't want to talk to anyone, like ever. Not even my kids, not even my wife. Not even the school that I need to talk to tomorrow. The surprising thing is I'm talking, most of you on this call, a lot of you are my friends. I was going through this and y'all probably had no clue. I just did not know how to do this. And so you're talking to a guy that has the Bible in his pocket, a former pastor, a guy that studied psychology, knows about some of this stuff. I didn't have a master's or a doctorate, but I knew about some of this stuff. My wife is in social work. I know to eat right. I know to sleep right. I know to exercise. I was never abused. I was never divorced. I was never addicted. I was never traumatized. Everything in the movie says that people that have these issues had something happen to them. No, I wasn't that person. I just didn't want to exist anymore. So I don't tell you, I'll tell you that I wasn't suicidal. I didn't want to take my life. I would never do that to my family, but I can just tell you I didn't want to be, if that makes any sense. So I began shutting down. I began pushing people away. It was a very scary time. I didn't want to talk to a single person, not even my kids, my wife. I was taking a lot more naps. It was taking me longer to get out of bed. I just didn't want to be. One thing I failed to mention to you at the beginning was that in my late 20s, I was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD. So I've been taking medication for that for a long time. But I decided to go back to my therapist and say, look, something's going on with me and I don't know what's really going on. And after a lengthy process and a lot of talk and discussion, I did finally get the diagnosis of clinical depression. And I had told my therapist, I'm taking enough medicine. I'm doing enough. I don't want to go through that again. If we're going to do something, if we're going to do treatment, it's going to have to be natural. So I'm happy to report that in 2019, I found my way of recharging my battery. Things are pretty good. And I'm going to share with you my treatment plan that I do. Now, this is my plan. It's not everybody's plan. Everybody is going to have to find their own way. But the point is, if you've ever felt this way, if you know someone that's felt this way, if you think you might be feeling this way, you have to take action. And that's the point that I'm trying to make with the rest of this session today is it's not going to go away. Staying in that fetal position, not wanting to talk to folks, not wanting to be, it's not going to go away on its own. And so if you've ever felt this way, there is hope. And I decided to do it without medication. We had to create a plan. Now think about this for a second. You have exercise plans. We make travel plans. We have nutrition plans. We make emergency plans in case of a hurricane or something going on. We have financial plans. We have college goal class plans. We have to-do lists. Why don't we have mental plans? How come no one told us that we needed to have a mental plan? And so it's important that we do. And my challenge to you is to go ahead and create one, even if you're not going through something. Because let me tell you, I didn't have things going wrong. I didn't have any addictions. I didn't have anything. Why was this happening to me? It was very, very strange for me. And so to be a positive, quote unquote, person, to not be a victim of anything and to have these thoughts was a very, very creepy, scary thing. So the good news is I got out of it, and now I'm going to walk you through that. Because we started outside of the half hour or the hour, I think I still probably have about 15, 20 minutes. Rachel, is that okay? Is that right? Am I still okay on time?
You're still good on time, yes.
Okay. All right. So one thing that my therapist and I kind of went through is the change management and the importance of it. There's going to be some things that are going to happen within your situation and within yourself. Within my situation, I knew I was going to have to make some physical changes as far as how I was treating myself physically with exercise, nutrition, and different things like that. Socially, I had to make sure that I was in groups that were going to be feeding me good vibes instead of negative vibes. Work. I had to make sure that the work that I was going to do was going to be positive for me. And so in 2018, after working there 16 years, knowing that and I took a mutual separation and I left the company that I still truly loved, it was just time. The travel was too big for what I was doing with e-commerce. Still love them, can say nothing but great things, especially the way that they tried to intervene and help me. But I needed to do something different. And so I knew that I also needed to make a change there. For me, I also knew that I had to make a change within myself. And so active coping skills, I needed to learn some rest and rehabilitation skills that I had to learn that I'm going to share with you. But the importance of this screen here is the fact that, again, you can't just think it's going to pass. And remember earlier, I said sometimes we want to say, oh, I'll just pray about it, or I'm just going through a phase, or I'm just going through, something that's going to go away. And it was more deeper for me in my situation. So the first thing that I learned was mindfulness. This is Allison Stoner. You may know her as the little girl that used to dance with the queen of R&B and hip hop back in the 90s, Missy Elliott. She was the little white girl that was dancing in there, get your freak on and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, she's a dance coordinator for a lot of famous musicians and artists and stuff, but she went to become a minimalist, and she's real big on mindfulness, has some podcasts, and she's a great person to follow in regards to some depression, some things that she went through. And so during that time, it was just coincidence, her stuff kept popping up on my social media, so I decided to follow her on some things, and she really kind of opened my mind to the word mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is something we hear about all the time. And even being a psych major and even believing in all that, those treatments, mindfulness I never really got until I do now. And it's the idea of taking breathing exercises and just getting into the zone and rebooting. And just like we have to reboot a computer that's stuck, sometimes our minds are stuck and we have to reboot and we have to reground ourselves. And so I do this about 3 to 4 times a day. And it's basically just sitting in my chair and feeling the weight of the feet on the ground, feeling the weight of my, butt in the seat, and feeling how heavy my clothes are. If I'm wearing a watch, how heavy that is on my wrist, how the warm or cold air feels on my skin, the sounds that are going on, and basically honing in on now, not in blocking everything out. You're not thinking about good things. You're not thinking about bad things. You're not thinking about a dream place you want to be. You're thinking about now. It's resetting, and it's become a really neat thing to do just to reset. I've learned that breathing helps the brain to get the oxygen it needs to satisfy the certain parts of the brain that need to think more clear. And if you haven't looked into mindfulness, I highly suggest that you do. There are certain mindfulness apps that are out there now, Calm, Headspace. Mindfulness is actually one as well. At the end of this session, I'm actually going to give you a QR code where you can download one of those at a discount. So I would just encourage you to look into mindfulness and understand it. Speaking of mindfulness, I want you to think about how whenever we're upset or we're mad or we're depressed, we tend to want to feed that Hulk inside us with other negative stuff and negative energy. I love music, as many of you know. I'm real big on music, and I was realizing a lot of music that I was pumping in my ears whenever I was mad or down or depressed wasn't healthy for me. So I've learned to either turn the radio off or pump in better, cleaner stuff for me during those times. Happy hours. We all tend to want to hang out with our friends, go to the bar and talk about things that, excuse my French, pissed us off at work. Well, think about how that really kind of fuels the monster instead of helping things. And so I learned that social group and happy hour talk really wasn't powerful for me. So I had to learn how to really do the happy hour thing in the right way. Twitter for me, during the political season of 2016 through 18, and even today, to be honest with you, social media, I'd been quite addicted to social media, Twitter, keeping up with all the lives that matter, things that were going on, the elections and all this stuff, and the Trumpisms, good or bad, or whatever you believe is on you. But Twitter was making me crazy. And so I had to actually, step away from that. And unfortunately, I'm back in that space now, and I need to do that again. But the point that I'm trying to make is the mindfulness is huge, and there are steps that we can take for mindfulness. The other thing, whoops, that's not right. That's the wrong thing. The other thing that we need to do is or what I do, and I do this every day, is decide what my mood's going to be every morning. That doesn't mean that my mood's going to be impacted, but I make a conscious effort when I'm brushing my teeth and doing the whole hygiene thing, that I'm going to react to certain things a certain way, or at least try to. That way, if I don't, I can hold myself accountable. I can say, hey, remember what you said you were going to do. But I know that I'm going to have a hard day or a hard meeting, or I'm going to have a hard discussion with my kids or with my wife, that I need to decide and choose how my mood is going to be ahead of time, and then reevaluate at the end of the day how that went. So that is something that I do on the regular routine as well as part of my therapy plan. The other thing I do is really try to hold on to perspective. And my advice to you would be to find inspiration. And for you, it may be somebody famous, it may be an author, an athlete, it may be your boss, a director, a mentor, a peer, a parent, somebody that you really respect in regards. They're not perfect, they're not superhuman, they make mistakes too, but and sometimes it's better to pick one that you don't really know, and it's someone famous or something that you can just read, positive messaging about. But it's important to find perspective, because when we're not thinking clearly, our perspectives can be really, really messed up. And for me, it was my brother, Pete. Pete was one of the guys that was like a light in the room. Everybody liked and clinged to wanted to be around him. It wasn't because he was popular or super talented at different things, although he was. It was just a cool guy. He had a positive energy, and people always wanted to be around him. He was just that kind of guy. In 2017, we got a call in June from him and his wife that he had been diagnosed with cancer, desmoplastic small tumors were around him, and he developed sarcoma in 3 different organs at the same time. And we were told in June that he was going to have 3 months to live. He ended up having 3 years, so it ended up being an awesome 3 years to witness. And the reason why it was awesome was because of the way that he approached cancer. He was very brave. He was very still the same positive energy. You would have never known he was hurting. And that was a big deal for me, because I mentioned to you earlier, I didn't really go through anything. I felt like a spoiled brat in that my life was pretty good. Why am I so miserable? Why am I going through these things? When you have people like this that are actually have real things going on. But these are chemical imbalances that we have. People are, born with certain limbs that are limited to do things, or certain heart conditions, or certain defects. Well, my defect happened to be the clinical depression that my mom also had as well. And so I had to learn to deal with these things. And though it's not physically as hurtful as cancer, it's a different perspective. But the way that he approached it was really big. And I took this from his Facebook page back in 2018. I have to get ready for the kids for school. I have to get kids ready for bed, cook for my family, clean the kitchen. I have to go get chemo. I have to fight this cancer. I have to deal with life. That was his thought life. And he turned it into a privilege instead of a burden, a chore. And he started looking at things like, I get to get ready. I get to get the kids ready for school, or get them ready for bed. Or I get to cook for the family. I get to clean the kitchen. These are things that I get to do. I still qualify for chemo, so I get to fight this thing. I'm privileged. And that's the type of perspective that I try to use. So I would encourage you to find a perspective and hone in on that when you're feeling in those darker times. The other thing, here's just some more perspective here. I stole this from Instagram, but early wake ups are times are equals the fact that we really love our children and we have to get them ready for school. The house to clean, instead of looking at it as a house to clean, you have a safe place to live. Laundry, instead of dirty laundry that you have to do, you have clothes to wear. So it's all about perspective and finding a way to hone in on that. The other thing that I did as part of my plan was make it a mandatory attempt to keep learning and welcoming challenges and something new. If you knew me in before 2019, I was always pretty puny and never athletic. I hated exercising. I don't like running. I don't like being in the gym. But that same guy ended up joining Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, I know that sounds crazy. It still sounds crazy to me. I'm a 2nd-degree blue belt now at the age of 49. For me, it has really helped me with problem solving, learning how to breathe under stress. It's helped me advance my position and know that I need to always try to make things, put myself in a better position than I was before. This may not mean much to you. But if I can survive 40 minutes with these tattoo strong Marine looking dudes, beating me up, as well as the 16-year-old girls that are beating me up as well, 4 to 5 days a week. If I can survive 40 minutes on the mat with those guys, I can take on any bad day, any conversation that I might have with my wife, any conversations that aren't going my way at work, any tragedy. If I can just learn how to breathe through those situations, I can do anything. So for me, jiu-jitsu has been really helpful. I'm thinking about doing a whole session just on what it's taught me mentally. For my daughter, it's the 6-string guitar, the one that has anxiety. She is a phenomenal guitar player, and she honed in on learning and mastering the guitar. She's, still doing that. But for her, it was that. For my father, it's carpentry. For different people, it's different things. Jiu-jitsu may not be your thing, but the idea is to keep learning. The other thing that I learned in jiu-jitsu was to bend and don't break. This is the top of Trail Ridge Mountain, the highest point you can drive within Trail Ridge in Colorado, the Rocky Mountains. We go there. We try to go every year. We didn't go this year, but my son, who is 12 now, 12 now, he gets altitude sickness, and normally he can't really make the big hikes. And this particular year, I had said, son, this is your year. You're going to get up Trail Ridge this year. And he was like, I'm just going to hold people back. I'm just going to get sick. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to hold people back. And I said, we're going to go at your pace. We're going to go at your step, your level. And it's important that you go and you fight through and be comfortable being uncomfortable. A, because that's the way life is. But B, you're never going to witness with your own eyes what's on the top of that mountain. And you need to go and you need to do it. And it was slow. It was real slow. But we got up there. He had the little breathing oxygen thing that you can take, and water and stuff. And he eventually made it. And it's important. It was important for him to realize that without him struggling and being uncomfortable, and being comfortable being uncomfortable, that you miss out on views. And so that's the way that jiu-jitsu has sort of taught me. You see this on billboards and bumper stickers a lot, T-shirts and stuff, but sometimes it's God, sometimes it's the universe or Mother Nature. But the quote, "I had to make you uncomfortable, otherwise you would have never moved," is very powerful and very, very special as well. The other thing that I did as part of my treatment was make a change. Now, some people go get tattoos, some people dye their hair, some people move. When Pete passed away, his wife moved to a new house. It makes sense. Some people change their jobs. I changed my job and then got laid off a couple times after that. But one of the other things that I did as part of my therapy to make a change was I got a dog. Now, you might be thinking that's silly. Who cares? I can tell you, I didn't like animals. I didn't. I'm not a pet person. In fact, I'll make a confession to you. When I was visiting your financial aid office and you were showing me pictures of your dogs, I didn't really care. And when you were at the booth at the exhibit hall and you were showing me, I was showing pictures of my kids, you were showing pictures of your dogs. Yeah, I didn't really get it. So now I get it. And I apologize. I understand now. This is AC. She's not a therapy dog, but she might as well be. To do something new, the idea with the therapist was to do something that's kind of radical, that's manageable, but that's going to also be a distraction for things that are going to be hard. And so for me, it was the dog. And so, yeah, it was hard training her, and she does make me mad sometimes, but this dog has taught me so much. For one thing, unconditional love. No matter how fat I feel that day, or how much I've broken out, or how bad numbers are, or how bad the school rejected me on the business day or whatever, when I come home, that dog welcomes me like nothing else. There's nothing like a dog when they welcome you. And it made me realize, how come I'm not welcoming my kids, or licking on my kids' face, or jumping up and down when I see my kids when they get home, instead saying, how are your grades? What's going on? Hey, don't bother me right now. I'm at work. It's really changed my attitude on that. So again, some people it's tattoos and coloring their hair or whatever. For me, this was a big change for me. The other thing I learned about animals is they live in the now. And they have empathy, and they can express relationships without words. And if we can do that as human beings, I think we would be better as well. Not only did I get a dog, I ended up getting 2. So yeah, the guy that hated pets ended up getting 2. So that's AC and Stevie. So part of the therapy was making a change. The other part of therapy is verbalizing, the importance of talking to someone. for me, I wasn't going to be able to talk to anybody. I was done with people. I didn't want to talk to anyone. As a people person, naturally, it was hard for me to say that, but I didn't want to talk to anyone. So calling a 1-800 number or hotline or even going to my therapist wasn't going to work. So my therapist taught me how to do the crazy thing and talk to myself. So I started talking to myself in the mirror and doing different things and started having open dialogues. Now that might sound crazy, and you hear from sitcoms that crazy people talk to themselves, or we make fun of people that are homeless and on the street mumbling to themselves. But let me get you to think about something and consider something for a second. When we verbalize out loud, not only are we able to verbalize, we're able to hear what we sound like. We get to hear what we're telling ourselves. So if there's negative talk, I'm actually able to hear myself talking to myself a certain way. So I made it a point to actually talk to myself like a crazy person. It's good to let it out, for one. Number two, it's good to listen to yourself. And if you ever notice that you're really good at giving other people advice, but not giving yourself advice, well, when you do this, practice this exercise, you're actually able to give advice and take your advice. And so it's been real good to actually rationalize and think through things. I began talking to myself in the mirror, in the car, while I'm waiting to pick up my kids at school, anytime that I can. It sounds crazy, but it actually works. The other thing that I do is I try to write. Now, I haven't been very good about this the past couple of months, but journaling helps you be able to go back and realize how you were able to rise against certain things. I've been typing a lot more on my phone lately than writing on paper, but our thinking, if we don't process it right, it's all scrambled, but writing gives us a chance to make things more linear, as you can see in this diagram here. I'm almost done. I realize I might be going long here. The other thing is to be gracious, and not just about people, but about things and living in the moment. This kind of has to deal with the mindfulness of zoning everything out and living in the now. One of my favorite things to do is on winter football games is watching the air breathe when the offensive and defensive lines are looking at each other, and it shows that cloud. Like, that's a cool thing for me. It sounds weird to you, but it's a very cool thing for me. I appreciate that weird stuff. I appreciate the smell of coffee. I don't like the taste, but I like the smell. I appreciate the foam and beer. It's funny to me. These are the kinds of things that are trivial. These are the kind of things that we take for granted, but these are the kind of things that we can focus on to hone in on, to reboot ourselves. And being gracious in the moment is extremely important, and it's part of my treatment. Certain temperatures outside, certain feels in the water, that sort of thing. These are types of things that kind of help me as well. The last thing I do as part of my treatment plan is slow down. There is this thing that the United States has put on society that says we have to do everything fast. You have to graduate at a certain time. You have to get at a certain position by a certain time. You need to be making a certain money by a certain time. Our kids need to be choosing their majors by a certain time. That needs to stop. We're all individuals. We're all different people. And so go at your own pace. And parents may not like to hear that, and people may not like to hear students say, I need more than 4 years. I get that we all want to get them to graduate in 4 years, but people have different times and different things going on in their lives. We have to go at our own pace. So I've learned how to slow down. I've learned how to say no. I told you that I'm usually volunteering and trying to save everybody's day. I'm not going to let the Superman cake choke me anymore. I can do it friendly, in a friendly manner. I can let people understand my limitations now. But I've learned to slow down and go at my own pace so that I can be more productive in life. So again, wrapping up the change management, that's where all of that plan came from. Let me stress again, you have a to-do list. You have all these plans that you use, these planners and these schedules. Go ahead and create a mental plan too. At some point, you're going to need it. If you need help making it, talk to someone to help you create one that's specific for you. But it's not going to go away by itself. You have to take action. My plan may seem trivial to you. It's mine. It changes. Some of you that saw this at NASFA may notice I added a couple of screens because it's changed since then. It's constantly changing. The other thing I want to share with you is clinical depression doesn't turn off. So I mentioned that as of 2019, I'm pretty good. But I have my bad days. Now my bad days are more like 2 or 3 hours when it happens, and I can usually level off and get things back in control. But I don't want to make it sound like it goes away. If you have a diagnosis, that's probably what you're going to be dealing with. You just have to have the tools to work in it. You're not strange. It's okay not to be okay. It really is. Quit letting society tell you that it's not, because you're all right. So if you haven't heard, this is Suicide Awareness Month. And there was a recreated 988 crisis line has replaced the suicide prevention line, if you have not heard. So not only do we have 911 and 411 now, we have 988. Not only is it just for suicide, but it's for other things too. I can tell you that this wasn't going to help me for my position. I'm not against it. A phone line or talking to someone on the phone wasn't going to help my particular situation, but I do believe in this, and I do think it's important for everybody to recognize. You can share with your staff if they didn't know. Directors that are on the call, this is a good way to kind of start looking into being more open about this topic in your offices by taking the ALGE approach. Basically, an approach acknowledging that there are risks, acknowledging that there are issues out there, asking appropriate questions. There is a gray, fine, thin line that we don't want to cross, breaking boundaries according to HR, but being able to make things approach sessions like I'm providing you, encouraging appropriate professional help of the tools that your HR department offers. You might want to study and see what those are to share with your staff. Encourage self-help and support and strategies. Again, most of my plan are self-help strategies. I still take medication for ADHD and OCD, but I do not want to take medication for depression. So I chose some natural ways to try to deal. Just as a summary screen, what I'm trying to do by doing these sessions is to reduce the stigma associated with mental illness. I'm trying to also create a correlation between physical health and mental health. Don't just be worried about what's happening to you physically, but mentally it's more important. I'm trying to increase financial literacy on this topic at the workplace, make it a safe thing to talk about, and then provide teaching skills to management and HR folks so that they know that they can talk about this kind of stuff. If I can be of help to your office, let me know. If I can be of help to other places on your campus or your student body, let me know. Your church, let me know. I think it's a really important thing that we start talking about this stuff and understanding people as individuals with individual problems rather than collective. The last thing I want to say is a typical thing that most keynote speakers say in the conference sessions, something real cheesy, and it goes a little bit like this. What you do in financial aid is really important. And even though you have a back office deal, it's really important. All that cheesy stuff that you hear, I want to give you a different take on it. I am a man of faith, as you know by now, by hearing my deal. I do thank God every night for the University of Houston because it has helped my family tremendously, me being able to go to school. I thank God for the professors, the classmates, the fraternity brothers, the ex-girlfriends that helped me study, people that helped me get through my experience. But a confession is I often forget about the back office people. And without the back office people, my family who did not know how to do the college thing, who is first generation, I was the first out of all my mother and father's side to go to college. We didn't know how to do it. We were intimidated. We were scared. We were nervous. It took me 5 years to graduate, but I did it with ADHD and OCD without the diagnosis and even knowing I had those. Studying was hard, reading was hard, but I did it, and it was thankful to the folks in the back office of this university. So if you lost your spark or that fire that we talked about at the beginning of the session, if you've lost that, I hope you can find it again because you are making a difference. You may not feel like it. If you feel burned out, if you feel like you're in a rut or in a hole, hang in there. But hope means anything to you. If it's impacted you, I would appreciate feedback, not just the little professional speaker button that you click on LinkedIn, but if you could actually write what am I trying to say? Review, I guess. I don't know. Within that section of LinkedIn, it would help. I am trying to start some podcasts and do some things on the side. It's not a side hustle because this is not something to make money on, but it's something that I feel is my side mission. I'm treating this as a ministry, if you will, to get this word out. So if you want to look me up, that would be great. My hashtag is ShineOn. And the last thing I just wanted to offer you, this is a QR code. You can scan it right now. Ernest believes in this mission, and they have given me the okay to offer you the ability to download on Apple or on Spotify a wellness app or tool within either of those platforms, and you have $12 to be able to use to go towards a wellness app or wellness tool through Spotify or Apple, just for listening and sticking around for this session. You don't have to take it if you don't want it, but there is a QR code, and I'll email this to all the attendees as well. But I thank you for your attention. I thank the leaders of the organization for inviting me to come, for understanding the seriousness of the topic. I hope I didn't uncover any hidden stones for anyone on the call, but if you did, hopefully you have some ideas on what you need to do to help yourself. But I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's great to see all your faces again. I didn't realize I would have so many friends on this call. But again, if I can be of any help to you, whether it be financial aid related or within this type of talk, let me know. But thank you very much. And also thank you for letting me record this because I've had some schools beg me for recordings and I've yet to do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou. We really appreciate it. Maxine Millette giving you a hand clap. Do we have any comments, questions, anything for Lou at this point? It really, I was going to say, it really is timely. I mean, with the coming out of the pandemic, and a lot of our offices, at least I'm going to say, personally, are probably struggling with staff, lack of staff members. It's a timely topic, so we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much. And if you'll have questions, and if you don't want to ask them, here, you're welcome to email me or call me or whatever. I usually have people walk up to me after the conferences and ask some more personal stuff. So I'm willing to share whatever I can to help you out.
Thank you. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you, Lou.
Okay, it's 10:30. We usually don't take a break until 11. We have a very light agenda, as you all know. Do you want to, Deshay, do we want to take a break now? Do we want to go through a couple more of these topics and then take a break? What are you suggesting at this point? So
the committee is okay to get through maybe one or two more agenda items. Will that be okay for everybody?
I'm good with that.
Perfect. Okay. Because this one will be pretty quick.
The next one is Deshay, so.
And like I said, pretty quick. The next one we have up is the prior FAC business. And from our last meeting, I did not have any prior FAC business. So I don't have any to report today. So if there was anything that was missed in the meeting minutes, let us know, but there was nothing that I needed to go back and revisit or research. So moving on from that one, I guess we can go to the next one.
Sure. The next agenda item is external relations. John Wyatt, Director of External Relations. I'll let him.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, good morning. For those of you who I might not have had the chance to meet, I'm John Wyatt. I'm the Director of External Relations at the Coordinating Board, and I work with the legislature to help advance issues impacting higher education. So I'm going to present a kind of a brief update on the upcoming 88th session, which is going to convene in 4 months from today. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So between now and the start of session, we do still have some business of the legislature. We can expect some more interim committee hearings. As you may know, interim hearings examine issues that the legislature may wish to take action on during the session. Of particular interest to this committee, there's going to be a hearing of the House Appropriations Committee tomorrow, beginning at 8 o'clock. Commissioner Keller is going to be testifying to that hearing on the issue of accessibility and affordability in higher education. So as I said, that begins at 8. It'll be broadcast via the House website. So I encourage you to tune in if you're able. So in his testimony, the commissioner is going to once again reiterate the importance of affordability in making Texas higher education accessible to students of all backgrounds. In particular, he's going to talk about and highlight the agency's exceptional item request regarding financial aid. So those of you who are familiar with the process, the agency submitted what's called our LAR a couple months ago, which is our budget request essentially for the next biennium. And as part of that process, we are allowed to request additional funding through an exceptional item request. So we did submit an exceptional item request of an additional $153 million to support student financial aid programs. Now, the idea with that request is it would increase funding across kind of the three major financial aid programs, Texas Grant, TEOG, and TEG, to support the same percentage of eligible students that these programs support in the current biennium. As you may be aware, supporting additional financial aid has long been a budget priority of this agency. And so we submitted a request again to at least keep us at the same service level next biennium as we are in the current biennium. But then we also, as part of that exceptional item request, requested additional state general revenue funding to support a couple of new innovative financial aid programs that we were able to pilot through federal GEAR funds. So we would specifically seek to support transfer students through the Texas Transfer Grants, as well as high-achieving, low-income students participating in the Texas Leadership Scholars Program. So again, that exceptional item request would encompass all of these financial aid programs. So we will work with the legislature during the lead up to session to continue to push for that exceptional item request and to just make the point that investment in financial aid is critical to us being able to achieve our goals under Building a Talent Strong Texas. Another major focus in the lead up to session is the Texas Commission on Community College Finance. You may be aware there was legislation last session that created this commission to really examine comprehensively our system for funding our community colleges and to make recommendations on how to improve the state's investment in these critical institutions. So one of there's a draft of the recommendations that has been released. And one of the major components of that draft are recommendations around affordability for students and their families. So that draft has some recommendations. Specifically, they recommend increasing funding for TEOG. And their recommendation is to increase funding so that you serve the same percentage of students in TEOG as you serve in Texas Grant. As you're probably aware, there's a much higher percentage of eligible students receiving Texas Grant than there is with TEOG. So the commission's recommendation is to essentially equalize those two programs in terms of percentage of students served. They also recommend a greater flexibility in TEOG to meet the needs of non-traditional students, including those pursuing non-credit and short-term programs. The commission proposes a new state financial aid program to cover tuition and fees for needy students in dual credit courses. As you're probably aware, there isn't really a financial aid program for dual credit students currently. And the commission also recommends expanding partnerships among institutions for paid work-based learning opportunities. So work studies, apprenticeships, internships, those programs that allow students to get academic credit as well as work experience. That final report is due to the legislature in November. So as I said, it's a draft now, and then the commission will make final recommendations that the legislature will consider. And then kind of a final point. So as you know, the agency will not be adopting a formal policy agenda for the session. That's something that the agency had done previously, but our real focus under Commissioner Keller is working with institutions and working with members of the legislature to help advance their priorities. So we will be working with decision makers to make sure that they're aware of priorities and concerns from the field, that they have data and analysis and perspective that will help them make the best decisions possible for our students and our institutions in higher education. We want to make sure we continue to communicate with you as we have relevant information regarding the session. It's a bit of a calm before the storm right now, so it's tough to say what are going to be the hot topics in the upcoming session. We will get some more info on that in early November when pre-filing begins. And so that's when we'll kind of see the first introduced drafts of bills that may be considered during the session. And I certainly encourage y'all to continue to communicate with us through this committee, with me directly in terms of anything you see in the legislature that needs to be addressed. So that's kind of my short version. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
See somebody's hands up. So Gilbert.
Oh, thank you. John, two questions. One, does the LAR that you all put forward align with the Texas Community College Finance Commission request for the TEOG to extend to that 70%, I believe, is of low-income students? That's one question. And second question is, the proposed dual credit finance or financial aid component, would that count against, well, has there been thought about whether that would count against a student's aid eligibility in terms of credit hours?
Well, on the first question, I will say our LAR is based on continuing the current percentage of students served in each program. So the answer is no. It does not assume the Community College Finance Commission position of bringing TEOG up to the Texas Grant Service level. But what I think kind of the way we're envisioning this is there's going to be kind of two tracks here. We're going to work, we submitted our LAR and we'll work with the legislature on that. But then the Community College Finance Commissions are really going to kind of move forward on an additional track. I think it's likely that there's going to be legislation introduced relative to those recommendations. But we'll keep you informed as that goes forward. In regards to the dual credit component, I can't answer that. I don't know. I will say I think as it's being proposed by the commission, it's more of an idea, more of a proposal for this is where we want to be able to get. And of course, we would have to work with institutions and with legislators to work out the details.
Thank you, John.
Bridget.
I had a question about the dual credit as well, because I guess what would be the mechanism for them to apply for that aid, because they're still high school, they don't have a high school diploma, so they wouldn't be eligible through FAFSA. So would it be a different program?
Again, I'm sorry, I don't have details on that. So this is something that the commission wanted to put forward. So I do think that there's still some fleshing in that needs to go on with these recommendations. I would be happy to provide y'all with the link to the draft report. Again, that's been posted. Maybe I can share that with Deshay, and maybe she can share with the group.
That would be helpful, I think. And then I have to always bring up, I feel like a broken record about the mirroring the FAFSA for the state. And I think that's really, really important in this legislative session, the selective service and the drug conviction. Big changes are coming to the FAFSA. And, it's going to be really important that I think those things get addressed this legislative session, because we have to wait 2 years and the new FAFSA is coming out 24, 25. And we've just been working on, student aid index and new formula. And it's a little mind boggling for me of most of us that have been here 20 years using EFC. It's a big change, and it's not a 1-to-1 ratio on EFC to student aid index. So that's going to be a big change that we're looking at on the state level as well, with funding and the TASFA and all the things that go along with that.
And that's something, again, we want to be in a position to where we're helping communicate that to the legislature. You're going to see some changes in terms of the higher ed committees this time. So there's an opportunity, I think, for some additional education of members. We're going to have a new chair of House Higher Ed. Representative Murphy is retiring from the legislature. You're going to have a structural change to Senate Higher Education, where it's going to be folded into the Education Committee. Chairman Creighton will continue to chair that larger committee, but Higher Ed will now be more explicitly a part of the Education Committee. But again, there's always some changes going into the session, which creates some opportunity for engaging members.
I think Gilbert had another question. Bridget, your hand's still up, but it may just be that.
I actually just had a quick clarification. Did you say, so John, are you saying Chairman Murphy won't be replaced, that they're going to collapse the committees?
Thank you, Garrett. Let me clarify. Two separate issues. House Higher Education, Chairman Murphy is not coming back next session. He's stepping down. So the House Higher Education Committee will have a new chairman. We don't have any particular indication who that's going to be. On the Senate side, the Lieutenant Governor has announced that with the start of the session, there will not be a separate Senate Higher Education Committee. That the Senate Education Committee will encompass both K-12 and higher education issues. And that the chairman of that combined committee will be Senator Brandon Creighton, who is currently the chair of Senate Higher Education. Does that make sense?
That does. Thank you.
Well, I guess a lot of change going on.
Hey, any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you, John. We appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Have a great day.
Okay. Our next item, number 6, is Dr. Charles Quintero-Pulse, talking about the financial aid strategic priority. Is he on? I'll look for him.
Yes,
okay.
I'm on.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me steal a couple minutes today to tell you more about the work we continue to do with both the strategic priority work, but also all the things that we are doing that have special funding through the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. The first being the broad strategic architecture that we're looking at. And I've mentioned before that financial aid is really the cornerstone of the agency's expand access strategic priority. We have the goal or our aim is to optimize financial aid to remove barriers to student enrollment, to improve affordability, and to enhance value. And I wanted to take the time today to express my appreciation for all of you who took the time to complete the survey last month to provide us with feedback on our description of the financial aid ecosystem, as well as your insights on the strengths and opportunities that we can take advantage of, as well as the weaknesses and threats that we need to address within the system. In looking at all of the information you all provided, you helped confirm some of the pieces of the puzzle that we were pretty sure we had, we thought we knew what you all would think, and you helped confirm that, yep, those are top pieces that we should be focused on. You also articulated some pieces of the puzzle that we hadn't necessarily put at the top. And so it was really helpful to get all of your feedback. We're still pouring through the results to develop a framework for how we want to articulate the goals and strategies. We've got the framework for how we're articulating the ecosystem, but then, what are the specific goals and strategies that we want to focus on? Just so I can reassure Bridget, alignment with federal is definitely on the list of things that we realize are critical pieces that you've mentioned in the process. So more to come. We continue to work through this. We view this as a multi-year activity or something that can really set a structure around which we can continue to work towards expanding access for years to come. It's not just a kind of one and done kind of activity. It really needs to be thinking about where do we want to go as an organization, as a state, with financial aid. So thank you very, very much for your feedback on that. Another piece that is funded through the GEAR program is the transfer grant pilot. And we've reached the point where I know institutions are reaching their census dates, which means that you'll be at a point to be able to start submitting your rosters so that we can reimburse you for the transfer grants that you have dispersed to eligible students. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that we're also looking at potential of possibly being able to provide some spring grants to some of the recipients, but we're not going to be able to finalize whether that's possible until we have the fall rosters from the four-year universities and HRIs so that we can understand the funding levels. So as much as I hate to be the one saying, please make me your next priority, I do want to kind of emphasize with folks that, our ability to try to expand this into the spring is so dependent on knowing how many of the eligible recipients actually enrolled and are getting funding during the fall, so that we can figure out what we might be able to do and turn that information around to you in a timely manner. So, submit those rosters and we'll get you money, and we'll figure out whether or not we can get you money for the spring semester as well. And I know I just saw, I think the email just went out during this meeting saying that everything's open for you all to be able to start submitting. So we look forward to sending you a lot of money. And then the final piece that's funded through the GEAR project is looking at our technological infrastructure with the goal of being able to bring a lot of disparate pieces together, if at all possible. Shortly after the June Financial Aid Advisory Committee meeting, Deshay and I were looking at where things stood with how things were progressing, and it started to look like we might not meet our goal of having the new platform ready in time for you to submit your transfer grant reimbursements. And we made the decision that rather than kind of waiting as long as possible to see whether there was any way we could get it ready, we wanted to, be able to, have a plan in place so that you all would, have the pieces that you needed to submit things for that. And so we did go with an alternate process for you to be able to submit those rosters. Did try to make it as simple as we could, within the process. We're looking forward to, finding ways to continue to improve that should we be able to do a spring transfer grant program. And we're currently reworking our project timeline for the upgrade to our technological infrastructure. We remain very optimistic that we'll have the new payment request structure for the Texas College Work-Study Program in place for the 2023-24 academic year. And looking at how we can have other pieces of the puzzle in place. We want to make sure that we do this in a way, again, that we're able to provide the information to you in advance. So as opposed to, kind of saying in mid-August, here it is, learn it. We want to make sure that we're preparing and have it ready, early in the summer so that people can have a chance to look at it and understand it, as well as to engage some folks likely through the data collection subcommittee, to be able to preview and test things and help us make sure that everything's in place. So more on that as we rework our project timeline so that you can know what to expect for the coming year. And again, thank you for your contributions to our strategic planning efforts. And we look forward to being able to send money to the four-year universities and the health-related institutions on their transfer students. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm guessing there aren't, but if there are, ask away. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Want to move to our next topic? I haven't looked at the clock yet. It's 11. Do we want to
break now? We're officially at 11, right?
We are.
Stretch your legs, grab some water.
Sounds good.
Your desk.
All right. We will take a break. Usually 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay. So we'll reconvene at 11:10. See everybody then. Thank you. is right at 11:12. Do we want to go ahead and start back?
I believe so. Hope everyone had a wonderful break. No, I need to stretch my legs.
Okay. So our next agenda topic is an update from the TASPA subcommittee. So
Before
I'm
we get
gonna.
started, can you do
Yes.
one more roll call after?
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
break?
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
Perfectly fine, Rochelle.
You know, still learning.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, we'll go quickly through the roll call. So Denise Welch. Saw her on here. Okay. Deshay.
Here.
Jackie.
Here.
Reggie.
Here.
Victoria.
Here.
Thank you. And Dee Dee is absent. Bridget. Sorry.
Here.
Cecilia.
Here.
Rachel.
Here.
Milette. See her back on the list. Okay, we'll come back. Gabby.
Here.
Perfect. Scott.
Here. Thank you.
Linda.
I'm here.
Holly. Holly, I don't see her. Oh, I do see her, but she may be muted or not back yet. We can come back to her. Shauna.
Here.
Sal.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Joseph Ruiz. We've got two.
Here.
Joseph Sanchez.
Here.
Lisa Ann.
Here, and I apologize for this morning.
It's okay. Tevin.
Tevian.
Here.
Here.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Arnold is absent. Gilbert.
Sorry, I was muted. Here. And I was late earlier, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to our next agenda topic, and that is the TASPA subcommittee. So I'm going to let Bridget and Claudette and the group take over.
Thank you. I can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am Claudette Jinks, Director of Strategic Advising Initiatives at the agency. And I've been working very closely with Leah Smalley, our Assistant Director in Student Financial Aid Programs, and her team, along with our agency's ISS team, to develop the online TASPA. As a reminder, we've also been collaborating with an online TASPA work group that is composed of both K-12 and higher education institutions, some of which are also on this committee. So I wanted to share an update on where we are to date. On Friday, August 26th, the coordinating board sent a notice to the institutions regarding the update on the development of the online TASPA. Our team's been working hard to finalize the development to ensure users of the application and institutions have a quality experience. Unfortunately, the product's 2023-2024 release is delayed. To ensure students can maximize financial aid funding, we at the agency are encouraging students to complete the paper TASPA, which is expected to be available October 1 of 2022. Extending this online TASFA timeline will help us to provide adequate training to our educators, students, and families, and to also improve data transmission to the institutions that will be using the application. In the meantime, we're working to ensure students and institutions have that high quality experience with the online TASFA by doing extensive testing, both internally and externally. Test files for institutions are in progress. The agency remains committed to delivering those test files to the institutions so that our institutional partners can work with their respective vendors in a timely basis to get that set up. We also are planning outreach to support educators, students, and their families when the product launches. The goal is to release the online TASFA this year, but as we work to finalize that development, we will continually alert our stakeholders of new release dates and other milestones. I want to personally thank our teams for where we are on the work to date and for your patience as we continue working on the online TASFA. I'll now turn it over to Bridget, who will provide the TASFA subcommittee, but I want to let you know that Leah and I will remain on the call to answer any questions. Bridget.
Thanks, Claudette. So the paper 23-24 draft will be sent out early next week. This will be for institutional review only. Changes aren't anticipated to this version, but we don't want institutions to distribute it until it's ready to go for October 1. So the official publication of the fillable form in both English and Spanish will be October 1. At that time, both language versions will be available to students and their families on the College for All Texans and Student Financial Aid Program web pages. There were a couple changes that were made to the 23-24 TASFA. These were based on recommendations by the Financial Aid Advisory Committees, the TASFA Subcommittee, and the Higher Education Coordinating Board. So we always make annual updates to years, dates, and the tax and income references from the IRS. Then questions were reorganized to align with the development of the future online TASFA. The proof of selective service registration is no longer required and was removed from the selective service statement of registration status form embedded on the TASFA. And then we did remove the CORD board removed a few questions. Date of graduation, number 17, college grade level, number 19, degrees, certificate attempting, number 20, number of credit hours enrolled, number 22, associate degree for transfer students, number 23, conviction restrictions, number 25, previously received state aid, number 26, and then work authorization and work study interest, which was number 27. And there's a train coming by my office. We moved to a new building, and College Station was named for the train station. So there you go. You get to hear the train. There's your bit of history for today.
Well, I can't hear it, so
good.
I think we're good.
Sometimes it's louder than others.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Gilbert.
One quick question on the delay and the planned release note for this year. Claudette, I think you mentioned at the beginning it was going to be delayed, but then you said it was going to be released this year. Do you mean just for testing?
We're hoping to have this roll out. It's delayed, but we're hoping to have it out this year. We're hoping to have it out, but it's delayed. And we don't have a definitive time frame at this point to give. So we're erring on the side of caution, but we'll update you on those milestones as we're able to.
Okay, so the intent is to have it open sometime this fall, but until then, advise folks to use the paper
Yes.
form. Okay.
And to be clear, because of not having a definitive date, we're going to say this academic year, if that helps.
But you do want to try to roll it out for 23-24 4,
Correct.
if possible. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Good question. Anyone else? Oh, Linda.
Yeah, my question is more about working with the software vendors. I understand that is the school's responsibility to let our software vendor know that there's a new application coming, or should I contact other schools that share my software vendor? What is the advice for that?
I can take it for on the Banner side. Are you Banner?
I'm PeopleSoft.
Okay. Contact your vendor. For Banner, they've told us they will not be ready until 24-25. So Banner is planning to implement something.
And I can chime in. Most of the vendors we spoke with, I think we may have had PeopleSoft on there. That doesn't mean it's your vendor contact, though, to be clear. They did say it could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to develop the import process. But we will be delivering data files to schools regardless if your vendor is set up or not. So that way you can have them, either the paper ones that are mailed to you or the data files. And we had talked about previously, we're trying to figure out a way to put them in a readable format outside of a fixed length file. That way, if you're not ready for import, which does take time, at least you would have some ability to read the file and get that information into your system to do a manual calculation like you should be doing now. But you can partner with other schools that have PeopleSoft, but based on my experience, it's like, all these Banner schools have Banner, but there's these subtle differences on, business needs. So it's good to have those partnerships, but ultimately I think your vendor would have to tell you what the time frame is and what all the steps would be.
I think Gilbert had another question.
So actually, this is just based on the vendor item. So I'm just trying to understand. So say you get the site up and it's online and folks can apply. It sounds like the vendor's capacity to consume what would be the TASFA version of the ICER file would impact whether or not the college can award aid based on the application. And it sounded like, I'm just trying to understand, it sounded like the college would still be able to get data on the application and be able to work or format that themselves to process aid awards to work around the vendor. So there wouldn't be, so if you get it up and going, there wouldn't be a set of institutions that would be accepting the application because their vendors can process versus another set of institutions that aren't able to process and need to paper fast. Is that correct?
If I'm understanding your question, potentially, but just to clarify one thing, we're sending the files directly to the school. Now, how the school deals with the files and their vendor and your software and your capacity is individual based on school, IT resources and all of that. We have some that their internal IT has said they can map it themselves. They don't need any help from their vendor. Other schools, it's like, no, we don't have the IT support or the funding for that. So we have to work with our vendor, and their vendor's like, it's going to take us a couple years. So they're going to look at, processing those manually just in a digital format versus like a paper form. So I hope that clarifies, but we're not doing any coordination with vendors specifically. We did some outreach to them for input and collaboration to make sure we were on the right track on development. But outside of that, we're not doing anything specifically with vendors to get the import or the automation going. So that's where that would come in. But all schools should get the files in the same way. They'll have the same access to that data as everyone else.
I think, Gilbert, are you asking, like, hypothetically, the application online comes up in January, students have to use the online application if it comes up in January. All schools are going to get the file. Are you asking, like, should students do a paper and the online? But I think if the application comes up in January, hypothetically, all students would do both, either or Leah. I'm not sure.
It's no, I mean, the student has a choice regardless. They don't have to do the online. They can choose between paper and online because some people may not feel comfortable with security, or their parents don't have an email address, or some kind of factor that doesn't do that. So in the rules, it does specify that if the student chooses to do the paper, you would need to use the state's application at that point. There's not going to be like different versions. You wouldn't be creating your own. You shouldn't be accepting FAFSA, like a rejected FAFSA anymore. You would be using the state's form if they don't qualify for the FAFSA.
I think I want to say I understand your question, Gilbert, but there is an existing process our agency has for all files to be collected at the agency and for institutions to grab those files. So every institution will have that capability to do so regardless on how they want it to transmit to their institution. Does that make sense? And did I answer your question, hopefully?
Yeah, it does. I was just trying to conceptualize because, different institutions use different vendors, and here's this information coming, and some vendors are able to consume it. Student applies, but if an institution's vendor isn't able to process the application, then how does that get handled, and does it impact the student?
No, it won't impact the student. To answer your question specifically, it won't impact the student because the institution has access to the files, regardless if it's transmitted through I forget the term, but transmitted through a vendor, they still have access. There are current processes that every institution already has with our agency that they could go in and access files from our agency. So that would not impede a student anything that what you're. I hope that answers the question, but it shouldn't impede it.
It does.
The school has to be ready to consume the file, not a paper file.
But the files are going to be collected. They're already there. It's just the transmission of the files that is different across institutions. But they'll be accessible.
But if I'm a school not getting an electronic file right now, I have to be able to consume the electronic file. I mean, I know there's the move it or whatever, you're going to get it through, but you still have to the school has to be ready to consume the electronic file.
Right.
Plus the paper.
Plus the paper.
And that's already, they have that option already, though, the paper file also.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And let me just also add that every process is going to look different at an institution. So I think one of the key things is that the data is available for all institutions, and how they determine the best route that they're going to use that because they will have to use it. It's not an option. If a student does an online TASFA and that's the only route that they took, the school has to use that data in order to process their award. Now, what that process looks like may be different from school to school, as it was stated earlier about how that information then transmits into the actual software system. It may be manual if the vendor isn't ready to go. It may not be, depending on if, the vendor is ready to go or if those IT resources are available. So I think to your point, Gilbert, the student wouldn't be impacted, but the processing time could be a factor because it will all depend on how each school is going to be able to process that information that they're receiving, both online or by physical paper application. So I think the key thing for all schools to keep in mind is that even if your vendor says, I'm not going to be ready until 24-25 academic year, you still need to figure out what that process looks like for you to be able to get the data that is available to be able to award the student, right? So that is, I think, the area that everyone's going to have to focus in on what will my process look like if I'm not ready to go to be able to retrieve that information into my system a lot easier than it is to manually enter that into the system, because all the information will be available. It's just a matter of how the school is going to use it to award the student. I think there was quite a number of hands that popped up. Scott, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to let Linda know that we're PeopleSoft also. We created custom pages already. We're just waiting for the test file from the coordinating board to come to test it. So if you need any help, just let me know. We'll help you out.
Thank you very much.
And Victoria had a question.
Yes, this is probably for Claudette or Leah. Is there an option to view individual students' information outside of the file transmission?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Thank you.
No, I mean, we do have another phase of work for next year that's being budgeted to build an admin portal. We don't know what that looks like yet, but the idea would be that not only coordinating board staff would be able to, query things and do reporting and whatnot, but then also institutional access so that you can look up a status or have some kind of, visibility to the student's application. But with this first launch, we're just trying to get it off the ground. So any questions or anything like that, we're still figuring out the best communication path on how that's going to work and help support and all of that. But we'll be ready to field those because we know that those are going to happen.
Thank you.
And I did want to let you know that this was an unfunded mandate, and we had to seek funding to develop this tool. And I think so that's why we're kind of phasing out the kind of scope of work and developing those different functionalities so that we have those. But that requires funding that we had to seek for, and we are in that process now. So, but we do have it set up for our next phase of work.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, ladies. Let's move on to agenda item 8, and that's the data collection subcommittee. I know Dee Dee's out, but Robert, I think, is going to give the update.
Actually, I'll go ahead and give that update for this committee. I think Robert will go for TASFA when that comes up, but I'll go ahead and provide that update. The Data Collection Subcommittee met on July 28th, and we went over several topics during that particular meeting. We had an update on the online TASFA at that point and where it was during that progress in July. We also did an update on the data modernization for the financial aid database. I am happy to say that programming is still underway, and we have done some internal as well as external testing, and some of our TASFA, some of our FAAC committee members were also part of that external testing. Denise, Victoria, to name a few, who assisted with the school testing portion of the data submission. So more information to come as we continue to program the new data submission portal to go ahead and upload your financial aid database reports. We also did a couple of updates on what was happening in the student financial aid programs. They discussed moving, which will come up a little bit later, final allocations for 22-23, and also some personnel activity. And then we went over some recent memos from May through July that were released, as well as upcoming deadlines during that time frame. So overall, we had a pretty good meeting, very robust, and the handout for the meeting is in the meeting materials. So you're more than welcome to kind of go through it and see a little bit more detail what happened during that committee time. And that's all that I have. Does anyone have any questions regarding what took place at that committee meeting? Thank you, guys.
The next agenda, I know Arnold is out. This is just a standing agenda item that we always have. Are we going to skip this one? I'm not sure where we're at with.
I did not get an update from Arnold on whether or not there was any more progress with the TASFA Legislative Committee. So I don't believe there is a formal update on this subcommittee.
Moving along, everyone. We're at on number 10. This is again standing committee or standing item that we have TASFA, the Texas Association for State Financial Aid Administrators update, and Robert is going to present that on behalf of Dee Dee.
Yeah, thank you. So just a couple of items. The legislative committee and myself, President, we emailed the House and Senate Education Committee members on August 9 to ask them for support with updated SAP policies to match federal policies, TEOG to give us the same ability to use Pell as a match and as similar to Texas Grant, and also eliminating the selected service requirement for state funding. So hopefully they'll support us with that. The other item that I have is that the fall conference registrations is going on right now. We have 204 people registered for the conference and 33 registered for the new 8-hour process basics. And the best of all part is that we have waived the late registration, so there will be no late registration this year. So, and that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next item is for our high school districts. So, Shauna or Lisa Ann, do you have anything that you would like to share?
I don't have anything specific this time. I will just kind of update everyone that not to say like we understand that it's a lot of work, but there was great disappointment that the TASFA wasn't going to be opening on October 1st online. So that's just to say that we're excited about it when it actually does happen. But other than that, I don't think I have anything new to add.
Okay. Lisa Ann, I know you're new.
I am new, but I'm glad to be here and glad to be helping with whatever you want. So throw some stuff my way, and I apologize for this morning. It was my computer. The whole school was down. So I'm glad it wasn't me being technologically inept. So made me feel better. But whatever y'all need, I'm here for you and happy to help and happy to be on board.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving quite quickly through this. We are on number 12. So Deshae is going to take it away with some of our student financial aid program updates.
Great, thank you again. It's been such a long time since I've talked to you all. Let me go ahead and give you a quick update on what is happening in the Office of Student Financial Aid. I'll go over some recent announcements or announcements that should be coming out pretty shortly, upcoming deadlines, and any accomplishments that we've had. One of our recent announcements was that institutions were reminded a few weeks ago that they can now begin submitting fund requests for the various state appropriated programs for fiscal year 22-23, which do include our 3 grant programs, Texas Grant, TOG, TEG, as well as Educational Aid Exemption and Bilingual Education. Our 2 work study programs, Texas College Work Study and Work Study Student Mentorship, you will be receiving a lump sum of money this month for those 2 programs. But for the Educational Aid and Bilingual Education, there is a new request form that you'll use in order to request those funds. We also provided instructions on how to request funding from the B.1.10 strategy that's tied to the Texas Grant, TEOG, as well as TEG programs. And there is a new 22-23 form for that as well. Also, as Charles had mentioned earlier, we did send out an announcement for the transfer grant program. It is gearing up to make payments to those public universities and HRIs, a step-by-step instruction on the process to request reimbursement, as well as return any program funds, was developed and released as a new resource, as well as we did include 3 new FAQs. So for those institutions that are participating in there and you've already completed your census date or soon to will be completing your census date, make sure to go ahead and turn those reimbursement request forms in as soon as possible. We also provided a fall 22 institutional calendar, which includes the months of September through December, with upcoming deadlines, alerts, and closures that could impact the state financial aid programs. You just heard from our TASFA subcommittee about the paper TASFA. A draft will be released within the coming week for institutions, and we will have the actual paper version, English and Spanish, go live October 1st. We are revising allocations for 22-23, which will include carry forward amounts. So if you were a school who did not use all of your funding for the Texas Grant TOG or TEG in the 21-22 school year and you wanted to carry forward funds into 22-23, we will be including that in our revised allocations, as well as we did get additional program funding. And so we're going to include that as well. So you should get an announcement in the coming weeks. We're looking to try to announce it, if not next week, then the following week. But we'll get that out as soon as we possibly can. So for upcoming deadlines, one of the key things that will be happening this month is cycle 3 for the fiscal year 22. We will be accepting files on September 28th. And then also for institutions that are participating in the Good Neighbor program, you will have until October 15th to communicate any ineligible students to the coordinating board so we can make replacements. Going on along, so I did mention earlier during the data subcommittee meeting, we talked about the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board moving. So one of our great accomplishments, and we're excited about this, is that we are moving later this month to our new office that's going to be located in the new George H.W. Bush building at the Texas Capitol Complex here in downtown Austin. Our new physical address will be 1801 North Congress Avenue, and we'll be in Suite 12.200. We are really excited to make this move. And so as we continue to transition during this move, we appreciate any support you'll be offering, and we look forward to continuing your needs at our new location. So for those of you who knew where we were before, the 1200 Anderson, be ready for a new look. Going forward, we will be not in just the 3-level building. We'll be in a high-rise building on the 12th floor. So we'll be excited to have you guys come visit us when we will get back in person for this committee. So we're looking forward to eventually coming back, in person and seeing all your beautiful faces and partnerships. But that's my update on what's happening with SFAP. If there are any questions, I'm happy to fill those now. I mean, y'all are so quiet. That means that we're doing an excellent job. We're covering everything. Or is it just because it's the 8th day of September and you're still trying to muddle through school?
Denise has a question. Yeah.
Well, just want to, in my little pea brain, we're still sending files the same way, right? For the cycle 3, everything's still status quo.
I will know more this afternoon, but as it stands, Move It is still the viable way to submit your cycle 3 FADs. If something changes, we'll definitely let you all know. But right now, Move It is still the way that you would go. Yes. Any other questions?
Okay, let's move right along to a topic that Denise and I kind of talked about a little bit. And I know most of you have probably received the announcement that Department of Ed sent, but I'll let Denise kind of ask the question that is floating out there.
Thank you, Rochelle. So I don't know about y'all, but I was kind of surprised a little bit by all this. It's like, oh, what's this? And there was not a whole lot of preparation. And that's okay, because, you know, the most consistent thing about financial aid is change. And we preach that at every conference, at every new aid officers. The consistent thing about financial aid is change. So once again, we're in the middle of change. I have not received but one Fresh Start letter as of right now, but I know many of you are in much larger institutions. So I just kind of wanted us to have a time to where we could just kind of talk about this a little bit, what your best practices are, what kind of forms you're using. Did you create one from scratch? Did you steal one from somebody else? Because that's what we're famous for, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I just want to kind of open the floor. Are you guys getting a lot of these letters in your institutions? And if so, what's your process? Ready, set, go.
So we actually created our own form, and I'm happy to share if anybody wants it. Our numbers weren't huge, which we thought, you know, we were kind of nervous too, like, how many is it going to be? The irony was, I think the announcement came out and said, did it say something like you won't see these letters till October, and then we had one that was dated like August 26th or something. We're like, well, the student already has a letter from Department of Ed dated August 26th. So when we went back to 21-22, we only had a handful, but none of them were Pell eligible, and now we're like out of 21-22. So we're just going forward. 22-23, we have like 8 students, 3 of them that we could automatically clear up, and then 5 that need to sign the acknowledgement. So as we always do, we create another report to find these students, and then we're going to post this document on them to acknowledge that they're a Fresh Start borrower. So not huge numbers for us.
Yeah, Denise, I think we had one that came in. She, at the time, did not have the letter. When we contacted her, she said, oh, I do have something. Let me go, you know, didn't read the letter, but found it quickly. So we actually have a scheduled meeting for a couple of my staff members tomorrow to kind of talk through the process. I think the timing was such that we had just heard the announcement from President Biden on the $10,000 forgiveness. So we were getting tons of questions on that. I don't know about anybody else, but then the Fresh Start initiative letter or electronic announcement was kind of on the heels of that. And so we were still trying to answer some of those questions about the loan forgiveness when this came up. So we don't really have a process in place. We don't really have a form yet because we've really only had the one student say, hey, I think this is me. I think I'm eligible. So, and I feel like the way the announcement was written, now I've only read the very first one. If there's another one out there, I've not had the time to read it. We're just getting it to census for us. So we're on the downhill slide, right? So if there are new things, I feel like the first announcement really gave us some basic information, but I felt like there was some stuff missing there for us to understand how to, you know, programmatically or how to do the process. I see Scott's hand up.
Yeah, we actually got one before the guidelines came out. So I had to go back and research, see what we were supposed to do. So then I cleared it, and then I had to go chase the student down to have them sign the paper. So, yeah, we created our own form. I think we've had like maybe 7 or 8 so far.
Robert?
Yeah, so we had about 10 at our college that have come in, and what my default management coordinator is doing is she's actually put a list of all the students that had previously defaulted or were in delinquent, and we're going through their application and posting the form for them to complete. It's a digital form, so they can complete it and submit it, you know, virtually. But we also have noticed that some of those that we have clear are now requesting more money. So we are implementing and they're not just, you know, they're requesting the max amount of money. So of course they would. So So now we put in another step for anyone that wants to request new money to meet with an advisor before we actually release a new loan or certify a new loan.
That's a good idea. Millett's hand is up.
Yeah, I was just going to say we've gotten 2 so far at the graduate school, and both of them are students I was not, they're in default for a reason, and they probably will get there again. So anyway, but we did receive them. I think the most frustrating part for us has been what the information the students are getting from their servicers, which is bizarre in some cases. I mean, everything from your school will provide the letter that says you're clear now, to the school that gave you the loan. So like their undergrad loans, that we would get a letter from Texas Tech that said they were clear, like just crazy stuff. And that wasn't a Perkins, like that was a direct loan. Anyway, just crazy stuff that the servicers have been saying, and information they've provided to the students, telling some students in default that they don't qualify for the Fresh Start program. It's really, that's been the most frustrating part for us and what's caused the most questions. Not even what the Department of Ed did or didn't do, but what the different servicers are saying in different ways. So.
And can I just make one recommendation for those who may not be directly tied to this impact, like our high school counselors or student rep? Would you, Rachel, just kind of give a brief summary about this Fresh Start, so then that way it's kind of clear for everyone in the committee kind of what is taking place and how that is impacting you all?
So, forgive me, because again, I've not had time to read the whole thing. So Department of Education notified institutions that students that were in a default status, and I believe their loans had to be defaulted before a previous date. I don't know the date. Was it 2020? I feel like it was before the pandemic. But if they were defaulted before a previous date, could actually apply for new Title IV, new loan eligibility based on certain criteria that that institutions would kind of have to review. So student previously defaulted now is eligible for loans is the scenario that we're looking at. And again, I feel like sometimes it's rolled out in a manner where Department of Ed, like Millett just had said, Department of Ed is saying this is how we should do it, but servicers aren't getting that message, or they're not relaying that information to the student correctly. So that's the confusion, at least on our end. And sometimes the students don't even know about it yet. So does that help? So previous loan default borrowers are now potentially eligible for additional loans at this point, if they qualify. Hope that helps, Shauna and Lisa. Anything else at schools that, Lisa Ann, if you were talking, I'm sorry, you were muted. Oh, okay, sorry. Anything else, any other comments or questions or thoughts? Thomas?
Yeah, I was curious. We've only received one letter thus far, so we haven't seen a whole lot here. But I did take a peek, and in NSLDS, it made no indication whatsoever that their default was cleared. I didn't know if any of the students that you all have looked at, has there been anything from the government's point of view that looks like they've taken care of their end of this business?
Well, we know our financial aid administrators know NSLDS has had some issues since July. So I think we're all a little frustrated with NSLDS at this point. But yes, that was the other thing, is that there was no, the flags were still showing default on these students. So yeah.
Okay. I'm just real curious how challenging it'll prove to be to try to make a new loan for said student and get COD and all the other players to be really happy with one another with the way that the data is structured out there.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
And a husband.
Scott, I think you.
Yeah, my question is, what are we going to do next year when these students are no longer eligible for a year after the in January, when it supposedly students go back into repayment? What are we supposed to do next year? Are they going to be eligible for loans only in the fall, or are they going to be eligible through the whole year?
Yeah, that's another concern. I do like well, I think it was Roberts had said that you're having students request the maximum amount and then having that additional meeting. I think that's a good idea. I did not think about, but probably beneficial for students. But Linda.
My question has more to do with the loan forgiveness and something I just don't think I've seen an answer exactly to yet. I have some students who are at their aggregate loan limit, and so they're either able to borrow nothing or just a little tiny bit. And so they're saying, when will mine be forgiven so I can borrow more money? And I'm just not sure the answer. And I told them until we see it in NSLDS, we can't recalculate that. Is that what everyone else is experiencing?
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm saying I just don't know. I can't do anything until I see the loan balance is decreased.
Well, I know NASPA has asked the question more directly because of the way that the forgiveness provision actually reads. It may not actually change their aggregate limit. So in other words, it may not change what they borrowed. It's not an amount that's paid off. It's an amount that's
I haven't
forgiven.
seen anything yet. Thank you.
So I just saw David Futrell was just talking about it the other day on something I was on, and they're not positive it is going to free that up. So I think there's I think NASPA would advocate, one way or the other, but I'm not sure that's a done deal, that it's even a done deal that's what it's going to look like on NSLDS, that it might be a whole new status that says this was forgiven by executive order or whatever, and their aggregate borrowing, the limit, what they borrowed stays the same. So it doesn't free up eligibility. So I just thought that, I don't think we know.
Lisa Ann?
Were they not saying this morning, I was just watching the news, but they were saying that if the student, they're only going to do tuition, books. So if a student went out and bought a car with their loan, that's not going to be forgiven and put up towards things. So they've got to be able to justify receipts. If you went to Cancun on your loan, that's not going to be paid for either. So we have a lot of students who have done things like that, but that we all know about. So their whole loan will not be forgiven at this point, once they start turning in receipts and justifying what they've used the loan for. It was out there this morning.
Not sure how they would even.
There is no way to verify that.
If your tuition is only $36,000 and you took out a $100,000 loan, where's the other $90,000?
But it's perfectly legitimate for a student to borrow for.
Well, my understanding, and from the understanding from the 6 kids I was working with at UTEP, that they're being asked for justification on spending, which,
But they can't even apply yet.
Right, but they're going to be asked for justification on spending is what financial aid told them this morning as well. So you may see some upsets and some hiccups along the way too. But who knows? I don't know. Who knows if the news is right? Who knows if the kids were right? But it does make sense.
Interesting. I've not heard that.
Yeah, and it's going to be.
I don't even know how you
time for something like that. Something somebody borrowed 10 years ago to provide justification.
Right.
Or 30 years ago.
Yeah, let's face it, we still have some.
We've got loans in the system that are more than 40 years old. So that's not.
Okay, any additional questions, comments? Okay. Denise, thank you for bringing this topic up. I think it was timely. We're still, Gilbert.
Real quick. So is the solution for this challenge on these Fresh Start and loan forgiveness items, is the solution to have clear guidelines from the Department of Education on processes for reinstituting aid or denying it, or what's the solution?
Well, the first set of guidelines that I read were somewhat convoluted, but again, they usually are from Department of Ed at this point in time, until we as a community start asking those deep dive questions those one-offs that we get. They really won't address, they probably won't address those, honestly. It takes a little bit of time. So I think at this point, the way we're going to handle it is we're going to go with all we have right now is that one announcement from Department of Ed with the simplified version of what we need to have on a form for that student. Trusting that NSLDS is correct, because we still got a few issues with NSLDS having updated and correct information. And we'll have to move from there. I think that's the best that institutions can do at this point. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Did.
Rochelle.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment. I think that a lot of our, Gilbert, to kind of go along with what you were saying, the Department of Ed has a high level, and they're given everything at a very high level, and then it kind of funnels down to us, and then when it gets to us, we have to determine what processes that we have to use in order to be able to be in compliance with the high level. And then we have to go back to them, and they have to give us more guidance on that. So it's just a process. And I think we go through this for everything that comes down from the department. And it does that way with the state level as well. Once everybody's at a high level, and then once that high level funnels down, then the questions start coming up, and then the processes are actually formulated. So yes, to your question, we do have to wait for guidance for them. And then guidance comes only when we ask the questions, like Rochelle had said. I hope that's a little more.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
You can, and to remain compliant, you can only do so much with what you have at that given time, which is why everybody on here documents everything that we have. We highly document everything. This is the announcement I had from Department of Ed as of this date, and this is our process as of this date. So as long as you've got the documentation, auditors are fairly good because at working with you, because they're in the same situation. They're trying to interpret the same regulations that you have that aren't really sometimes clear, as we know. So, any other questions? Fresh Start, just the term too, I was going to say kind of confused us because we have academic Fresh Start. I'm like, can we find another name or language for this? Because it's confusing. So we go with what we have, I guess. Okay. Well, thank you, Denise, for the topic. We appreciate it. Good conversation. Let's move to number 14 agenda item. We need to talk about appointing a new vice chair. So a couple of things. I'm going to take the time to kind of look at this a little bit and read this. So again, it's a 3-year commitment as a vice chair, because you would be vice chair, then chair, and then past chair. So if you're new, you would be on it for additional years. If you've been here for a while, again, it's a 3-year commitment. And vice chair really assists with the agenda, assists with the current chair. and they're the secondary point of contact for this committee. And then, so we just need to open the floor for any nominations. We have to vote on it. So do we have any nominations? Anybody interested? I believe you can nominate yourself, correct, Tashay? You can nominate yourself as vice chair. Denise has raised her hand.
I have a nomination. I would like to nominate Millette as vice chair.
Do we have any more nominations? Do we want to take a vote? I feel you, Millette.
Millette, are you okay with that nomination?
I most certainly am. Denise
Okay.
Denise Welch is texting me, can I nominate you? And I'm like, no. And she did it anyway. No, I'm just kidding. No, I said I'm happy to serve if I can be of help. So
I like the setup, Denise. It's good.
yeah, she's good like that.
Sidebar.
I've been voluntold by Denise Welch more times than I care to mention. She's, I saw the text before it got here. I knew it was coming. So happy to help.
Okay. Do we have let me ask this. Does Denise's nomination count for a vote? Do I need a vote and then a secondary vote?
We have a person who seconds that nomination.
Okay. So I just need a second.
I second.
I second.
I third.
Perfect. We've got plenty. Okay, great. Thank you, Millette. New vice chair. Great. Okay. That was easy. Let's go to our next item. We just really need some feedback on new agenda topics. So we really need you guys to think about this. Give us some ideas of what you want to see for the next meetings. And I say meetings in December. For our December meeting, we'll actually do the schedule for the next year. So think about those topics that are timely that you want to have some conversation on. Talk about, have presenters on. If you have some good presenters, as Deshae said earlier, we would like to have them as part of this, come present as part of this committee. We know there's I'm tempted to say we really still want to start looking at SAI, Student Aid Index, and what 24-25 is going to be like. I'm not sure Department of Ed knows yet, but that's just my opinion. I feel like listening to a couple of the conference topics, it was still a lot was up in the air, I felt like. But any ideas, topics, presenters, anything that you'd like to have this committee look at? Review, talk about, discussion points.
I don't know if this is of interest to the group, but I have a colleague who does a really interesting presentation on diversity and inclusion that is really, she's a financial aid person, so it certainly is sort of, thinking through that lens, but it really is about education equity. And so I think it would be broad enough for the members of the committee to be interested in. I think I've seen her do it in an hour, and I've seen her do it in 20 minutes. So I think it can be sort of catered, to whatever time we have available. But I can certainly reach out to her. I've seen her do it a couple of times, and it's very, very well done. And I think, I don't know that I've seen that in this committee before in the times that I've been a part. So does that sound interesting?
Yeah, I think we would welcome it.
Yes.
Okay.
So
great. I'll reach out to her.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thanks.
December 8th meeting. So if she's available, that would be great. And Gilbert, I see your hand up as well.
Just one suggestion, it may come up in the policy updates, but I'd welcome additional information on this Texas Community College Finance Commission recommendation and how some of those around the TEOG and dual credit financial aid programs might impact, well, both institutions and students.
Right, I'll see if I can work with John to see if he has a contact and kind of go from there. Thank you, Gilbert.
And I will say I reached out to NASFA to see if I feel like there was a webinar in August about the top 10 new, I feel like it said top 10 new financial aid items on the horizon or something. I have reached out to NASFA. I've not heard back from them just yet. That takes a little bit of time, I know. I've tried to contact them before for a presenter. So any other topics that you want to talk about, learn more about, hear about? Sal?
Yes. Hi, everybody. So on our end, we have a lot of issues with the students completing the FAFSA because it's a complicated, challenging application. We use a program called Going Merry, and it's tied to scholarships. There's a lot of scholarships in there that students can apply for. In addition to that program having a system to help the students complete the FAFSA application, which I have used with my students here at the campus, and it's made a big difference in being able to complete it. I'm not sure if the program is just dedicated to high school students, but it seems like it could also be geared towards students in college who have, challenges filling out that application. And if they're interested in scholarships, they can apply to those as well. I know Lisa has contact with the program as well. So do I. I don't know if you all would be interested in having someone from Going Merry come and present to the committee so that you all could learn more about that particular program.
I think so.
Okay. Okay, then I can, Lisa and I can get together and then we can reach out to, his name is Charlie, and then we can ask him about coming to present with you all and you can get some more information on that.
Perfect. That would be great, Sal. Thank you. And if anyone has other colleagues or other partnerships that you think would be very beneficial for this committee, please feel free to reach out to Rachel and I, and as well as Millette, our new vice chair, and bring those things forward. We are here for the state of Texas and the community of financial aid leaders. And so I think it's wonderful for us to share different perspectives across this education spectrum, from K through 12 all the way to post-secondary. And so any information or presentations that are going to help us all improve in our roles as educators, I think this is a wonderful opportunity and platform to do so. So I think we welcome, it's not even think, I know we welcome all presentations because we all at some point can benefit. I think today's presentation was very nice and timely, and there are others that can be out there for professional development and growth, as well as other areas of education that we can learn more about since we are here partnering together. So continue to bring those forward so we can add them to our agenda. I
think Rachel,
other hands.
Yeah, Rachel, unless Sal has something else, his hand's still up. He may just not have. Rachel?
Yes, hi. So when you were mentioning like bringing in people in presentations, this week I've been talking and interviewing with a lot of my colleagues and peers and also just a lot of students here at UT about their experience in general with FAFSA. And I've received a lot of stories, and I've also like written them down, and I've just been continuously interviewing because I think it's really important that as a board, there is direct communication and connection with the students itself and understanding their experience and their process with going through FAFSA, especially since everybody has different circumstances with their backgrounds and their families. And so I would be more than willing to have some friends. They volunteered to come and present their stories and their experiences with FAFSA. One of my roommates actually had a experience earlier this year with FAFSA, and she was having a lot of trouble with communication with our financial aid office. This past week, haven't been picking up any of the phone calls for the students, and I work in the school here, and so we get a lot of students calling in saying that they haven't had their bar reviewed, and so with that, they had to pay full tuition because our financial aid office wasn't picking up any of the calls, and so we've had a lot of like really upset and angry students calling into our school specifically because they've had to pay full tuition, and because tuition did increase for some of the schools here, and so for some of like the schools within our university. And so I've just been hearing and dealing with like a lot of the upset students, and especially with this year with tuition being on the rise. And so I just wanted to know y'all's thoughts on having some of my colleagues or some of my friends here at this university come and speak about their experience and their stories.
Yeah, I think we can definitely work with you and your colleagues and to form a presentation that will definitely be educational on the challenges with the financial aid process, right? So we definitely want to make sure that we understand what that experience and perspective is, but at the same time, not place any name blaming on a process because we know the complexity of it. So just want to make sure that we shape that presentation to where the information that's being provided to all of us gives us some ideas of how we can improve the process, especially from a student's perspective of going through it. So I definitely feel like Rachel and Millette and myself would love to work with you, Rachel, and kind of pull together what that presentation could look like.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
And that's the point of having a student representative with our committee, is because they will be able to tell us what is the perspective that they see. Our lenses are quite different because we all play different roles. And so we all have different viewpoints of what we see as it relates to education, and specifically the financial aid process. As we all know, at times it can be very complex and cumbersome, but in the end, it definitely is a benefit for many.
Right.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, of course.
We have a good start. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I think that is it. I do want to send a couple of reminders, or say tell you a couple of reminders. We do have to actually complete the expense form, and I guess that would be coming from Lourdes. So correct, Lourdes will be sending us all an expense report that we have to fill out. Please be mindful, and let's get that back to her as soon as we can. And that'll come in a separate email with a link, and I think it's an online form we submit now. So we'll just need to do that. Make sure we get that to them.
And we'll send it in a electronic announcement. So shortly after this meeting, it is fairly easy to complete. Everyone's name is already embedded in there. So find your name, put the number of hours that it took for you to prep for this meeting, or the number of hours of your attendance. We use that information for an annual report that we will probably be delivering in December. So that'll probably be another agenda item. So just make sure that you can turn that around within the next 7 business days once you receive that announcement. It'd be very helpful. Lisa, did you have your hand up? I'm so sorry, Rachel. Oh, okay.
Hey, if we don't have anything else, I think we are ready to adjourn.
Yes. 12:20. Yes.
Yes. You're voting. I'm sorry, Denise, I didn't hear you.
I move that we adjourn.
Perfect. Do we get a second? Perfect. We are adjourning. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you all. Have
Thanks,
a wonderful
everyone.
rest of your work day.
Have a good day, everybody.
Weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.